Chapter 694. Hearing Yi Chen's words, Elder Yu smiled bitterly. Yi Chen was right. Power was not as important as strength. Unfortunately, knowing was one thing, and doing it was another. Moreover, not everyone was like Yi Chen, who had boundless potential. Their potential had already been exhausted, and they could only rely on the sect to obtain the resources they wanted and continue to slowly increase their strength. Everyone's circumstances are different, and so are their perspectives. It seems like I was too impulsive. Elder Yu thought that Yi Chen was a bit impulsive. However, after hearing Yi Chen's words, he felt that he was overthinking things. For Yi Chen to have his current accomplishments, how could he not know what was important and what was not? He had certainly thought things through. There were 24 elders in Elder Assembly. From Yi Chen's observation, he discovered that there were roughly 7 or 8 people who favored Wei Longdao. Although they had hidden it well, how could they escape Yi Chen's eyes? It was clear how powerful Wei Longdao's connections were. However, Yi Chen didn't care. Even if the Elder Assembly didn't think that Wei Longdao was guilty and could continue as the Azure Dragon Hall leader, it had nothing to do with him. He would only do what he had to do, and the result wouldn't affect him much. Of course, if the other party overestimated their capabilities and retaliated, he wouldn't swallow his anger. Yi Chen, you've done well. At this moment, Second Elder Silver Sword transmitted to Yi Chen. Yi Chen glanced at the Second Elder out of the corner of his eyes. The Second Elder didn't look at Yi Chen and continued, as far as we're concerned, as long as we have sufficient reason to suspect, we don't need proof. If we really needed proof to arrest someone, who knows how long it would take. Therefore, you can be at ease. I, Great Elder, and Third Elder all think that you've done the right thing. Since this Wei Longdao is a suspect, we can't let him return to Azure Dragon Hall, nor can we let him leave the palace. However, in order to prevent others from thinking that you're fighting for power, you can't be the Azure Dragon Hall leader. If you have any opinion, you can speak directly. Second Elder is joking. I've never been interested in power. Yi Chen replied. Haha, that's good. You will know who the new Azure Dragon Hall master is tomorrow. We will do our best to cooperate with you. Second Elder wasn't lying, nor was he afraid of Yi Chen's identity as a dragon god envoy. He truly felt that Yi Chen's way of doing things was too good. He had helped Great Elder and him solve a huge problem. Catching a thief, catching a thief, catching a thief, catching a couple. But, if they couldn't be caught, wouldn't that mean that the mastermind would be free and unfettered for the rest of his life? Extraordinary times call for extraordinary actions. Currently, Dragon God Celestial Palace was in a crisis, and the best way to deal with spies was to catch all the suspicious ones. Even the Azure Dragon Hall leader was no exception. Cough, cough. At this time, the First Elder cleared his throat and asked Wei Longdao, Hallmaster Wei, this isn't a question of who to believe. Let me ask you, were you really impulsive when you killed Yaroifeng back then? Not bad. Wei Longdao nodded coldly. You've always been calm. No matter how calm one is, one can still get angry. Without a doubt, Yaroifeng made me very angry. Because of him, many brothers of my Dragon God Celestial Palace have died. Alright, if there's no problem, the Azure Dragon Hall leader position is still yours. But, before that, you'll have to undergo a series of investigations. I hope you can understand. Great Elder was, after all, the First Elder. Dealing with this kind of thorny problem was easy for him. From his tone, he didn't side with either Yi Chen or Wei Longdao. On the surface, he was comforting Wei Longdao and didn't reprimand him. However, since he didn't let Wei Longdao go, it was equivalent to giving Yi Chen enough respect. Hearing these words, Wei Longdao's complexion turned unsightly. In the end, he still had to undergo investigations. In other words, Great Elder had chosen to believe Yi Chen. Great Elder, this doesn't seem appropriate. Wei Longdao didn't say anything. Instead, an elder who had a good relationship with Wei Longdao stood out. He was the 8th-ranked Elder Liu. Second Elder said with a frown, Elder Liu, how is it inappropriate? I agree with Great Elder's decision. I also agree. Elder Liu, I know you don't believe that Hall Leader Wei is guilty. We don't believe it either, but an investigation is necessary. Therefore, I agree with Great Elder's decision. Me too. Of the 24 elders, 16 agreed with Great Elder's decision. Even if the remaining 8 wanted to speak up for Wei Longdao, it was meaningless. In the Elders' Council, the minority followed the majority. Smiling bitterly, Elder Liu glanced at Wei Longdao helplessly and took a step back, sighing, since everyone agrees, this Liu will obey. That's right. Investigating Hall Leader Wei isn't targeting him. When the truth comes to light, Hall Leader Wei will still be the Azure Dragon Hall Leader. Third Elder said with a beaming smile. Turning his head, Great Elder looked at Yi Chen, Dragon God Envoy. I'll leave the Azure Dragon Hall's matters to you. Tomorrow, we'll send an expert to the Azure Dragon Hall to temporarily take over the Hall Leader's position. I hope you all can get along well and work together to resist the 4 opposing factions. Don't worry, this is my duty. Yi Chen nodded. Good, you go back first. If there's anything, I'll send someone to inform you. At this time, it was already the second watch period, and the night was as cold as water. Great Elder was clear that the Azure Dragon Hall still had the task of transporting resources, and Yi Chen couldn't be missed. Farewell. Yi Chen glanced at Wei Longdao and left the Elders' Hall. Watching Yi Chen's back disappear into the night, Wei Longdao's eyes flashed with a murderous cold light. When Yi Chen returned to Azure Dragon Island, Shu Danian and Wu Chuan were both waiting for him. Vice Hall Leader Yi, how is it? Shu Danian asked. Yi Chen said, Wei Longdao is under investigation. Tomorrow, someone will come to Azure Dragon Island to temporarily take over the Azure Dragon Hall Leader's position. Fortunately, Shu Danian and Wu Chuan glanced at each other and let out a sigh of relief. If Wei Longdao continued to be the Azure Dragon Hall Leader, the first to feel uncomfortable would definitely be the 2 of them. After all, they didn't have Yi Chen's strength, nor did they have Yi Chen's confidence. Thirdly, they didn't have enough support. They were just Vice Hall leaders under the jurisdiction of the Azure Dragon Hall. Vice Hall Leader Yi, what about today's resource transportation task? The enemy already knows where we are going and the number of our people. Wu Chuan asked. A cold light flashed in Yi Chen's eyes. Follow the original plan. Azure Spirit Island, a resource island close to the core of Blood Battle Ocean. Because this island had an ordinary upper-grade spirit vein, the natural yuan qi here was terrifyingly dense. Almost every breath here was equivalent to a mortal realm warrior's 15 minutes of breathing. Living here for a long time, one would be immune to all diseases, and the body would be strong. If one gave birth here, the baby would definitely have a good foundation for martial arts. On Azure Spirit Island, the miners were working hard as usual. However, it was hard for outsiders to know that last night, a large group of people had come to Azure Spirit Island and were hiding nearby. You 3, don't worry. I've brought 1,500 people from the Sky Eagle cult. Even if we can't take them down, we won't be defeated by them. Once you surround them from the back, killing them will be as easy as killing dogs. The hall leader of the Sky Eagle cult, the hook-nosed middle-aged man, said. I hope so. Whirlwind Gate's Yin Wind Hall leader Heilungji said. Alright, there's no time to lose. My water wave sect will go first. Brother Ju, I'll leave the task of attracting the enemy to you. The green-robed old man waved his hand, and more than 1,000 people of water wave sect flew southwest. Farewell. You must succeed. The black-robed man and the Whirlwind Gates Hall leader Heilungji headed south and southeast respectively, leaving only the Sky Eagle cult's people behind. Retracting his gaze, the hook-nosed middle-aged man said loudly, Brothers of Yin Wind Hall, it's time to get rich. Half of the enemy's resources and wealth will belong to us, and we'll also get half of the contribution points. This is not something that happens often. It's our luck to run into them. Hall leader, don't worry. Who knows, our Sky Eagle cult might be able to get rid of them and take all the resources and wealth for ourselves. The treacherous fatty beside the hook-nosed middle-aged man said confidently. Right, kill all the enemies and take all the resources for ourselves. According to the usual practice, only 90% of the resources would go to the headquarters, and the remaining 10% would be distributed accordingly. Therefore, Everyone's enthusiasm was high, and no one was afraid of death. Even if they couldn't take down the enemy, as long as they could delay them, it would be fine. 1,500 people were not to be trifled with. Even if the enemy had 2,000 people, they wouldn't be able to do anything to them in a short time. Let's go. The hook-nosed middle-aged man revealed a satisfied expression after seeing everyone's high morale. He waved his hand and led the group toward Azure Spirit Island. Soon, everyone arrived 2,000 li south of Azure Spirit Island. All right, everyone, split into 3 groups and wait. This time, it was different from the past. Previously, ambushes were the main method, but this time, they would kill as soon as they saw the enemy. There was no need for ambushes. Therefore, they only needed to wait for Yi Chen's group to arrive before they started killing. 15 minutes pass. 30 minutes pass. They are here. There are quite a lot of people. A bloodthirsty look flashed through the hook-nosed middle-aged man's eyes. In his sight, there were about 1,100 people rushing toward them. The 3 people in the lead were Yi Chen, Shu Danian, and Wu Chuan, the 3 deputy leaders. Haha, since you are here, then don't leave. The hook-nosed middle-aged man let out a sigh of relief. There were only 1,100 enemies, which was 400 less than them. This was a huge advantage. You are wrong. Yi Chen and the other 2 looked calm. Arrogant. You won't even know how you die later. The hook-nosed middle-aged man raised his right hand and was about to give the order. On the other side, Yi Chen also raised his hand and yelled, "All of you, come out." His voice was mighty, and with the help of Zhen Yuan, it spread out dozens of times faster than the speed of sound. In an instant, it spread out hundreds of li kill. From the north, east, and west, more than 1,000 people charged over from each direction. The people in the north were dressed in black, and they were from the Black Dragon Hall. The people in the east were dressed in red, and they were from the Red Dragon Hall. The people in the west were dressed in white, and they were from the White Dragon Hall. In addition, the leader of the White Dragon Hall was the White Dragon Hall leader, Mo Feng. Chapter 695. How is this possible? The middle-aged man was dumbstruck, his face aghast. No matter how stupid he was, he knew that he had been ambushed. Up until now, it had always been them ambushing Dragon God Celestial Palace's people. He had never thought that one day, they would also be ambushed. Bastard. That guy actually betrayed us and provided false information. As the hall leader of Sky Eagle cult, he naturally knew that they had spies in Azure Dragon Hall. Therefore, his first thought was that they had been betrayed. Break out with all our strength. 1,500 against 5,000. How could the middle-aged man have any other thoughts? The only thought in his mind was to run away, as many as possible. Hall leader, which direction do we go? The treacherous fatty hurriedly asked in a panic. This way. The middle-aged man chose Yi Chen's direction. The other 3 directions had at least 1,300 people, and the most was 1,500 and 600. Meanwhile, Yi Chen's side only had 1,100 people, a few hundred less. With their strength of 1,500 people, they should have a high chance of breaking through. Charge. Raising his hand, the middle-aged man led his people to the right. He was not stupid enough to fight against Yi Chen head-on. The most important thing at the moment was to escape the encirclement. Kill. Yi Chen stood on the Golden Dragon chariot, while Shu Danian and Wu Chuan stood on the Black chariot. With the 2 chariots as the arrowhead, more than 1,100 people were like 2 long dragons, advancing side by side, slanting toward the Sky Eagle cult's troops. When the distance was only 30 li, Yi Chen and the rest took the initiative to launch their attacks. One attack after another ruthlessly fell on the Sky Eagle cult's troops like a torrential storm. Defend. The Sky Eagle cult's people joined hands to form a thick Zhen Yuan barrier. This Zhen Yuan barrier contained the power of 1,500 people. Its defense was so strong that even if several half-step kings attacked together, they wouldn't be able to break it. Yi Chen and the rest were, after all, far away. Thus, their attacks were weakened by a lot. They only left a few tiny ripples on the barrier, like the ripples of a drizzle falling on a lake. Vice Palace Leader Shu, Vice Palace Leader Wu, they're currently defending with all their might. They don't have the time to attack. The two of you will block their path at full speed. We'll suppress them from the left and right. Yi Chen said decisively to Shu Danian and Wu Chuan. All right. Shu Danian and Wu Chuan led 600 to 700 people and separated from the main force. Two long dragons, one on the left and one on the right, attacked the Sky Eagle cult's people. It was fine if the other side only defended, but if they wanted to attack, they would definitely withdraw their defense. In that case, a round of attacks would be able to wipe out half of them. Faster, faster. The hook-nosed middle-aged man was anxious. If the other side didn't split up, he could easily escape the encirclement by sacrificing a small portion of his forces. In this situation where he fought and retreated, when the reinforcements from the other three forces were no longer a problem, it would be their turn to fiercely counterattack. However, Yi Chen's troops took advantage of the moment when they were defending with all their might to split into two groups. One group attacked them to slow them down, while the other group temporarily gave up on attacking and rushed to the front at full speed to block their path. Left side, defend with all your might. The others, attack. Amidst the chaos, the hook-nosed middle-aged man didn't lose his cool. He ordered the people on the left side to defend with all their might against Yi Chen, while the people facing Shu Danian and Wu Chuan gave up on defending and attacked with all their might. Although the speed of the 1,300 people was a lot slower, it was still majestic and unstoppable. Rumble. Like countless fireworks exploding, hundreds of attacks flew towards Shu Danian and Wu Chuan's group. Shu Danian and Wu Chuan didn't plan to fight back. Their goal was to stop the Sky Eagle cult's people. Therefore, their first thing to do was not to counterattack, but to stabilize their formation and erect their defense. Bastard. Seeing the round of attacks go to waste, the hook-nosed middle-aged man's heart sank again and again. The enemy had obviously planned ahead and considered all the possible problems. In other words, he was like a fish in a net. No matter how he struggled, it was useless. You guys are ruthless enough. Everyone, listen to my order, split into 13 groups. Staying together, they had high defense and attack power, but they would be easily suppressed. If they were scattered, many people would die instantly. However, judging from the current situation, it would be a fantasy if no one died. If they were scattered, one or two groups might be able to escape, but if they stayed together, everyone would die. Shua 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 shua, like a school of fish in the water, the Sky Eagle cult's people suddenly split into 13 groups, running through any gap they could find. The scene was extremely chaotic. Facing this kind of situation, Yi Chen didn't change at all. Wave after wave of attacks were thrown out, destroying one group after another. As for himself, he directly controlled the Golden Dragon chariot to attack the hook-nosed middle-aged man's group at the very front. His speed was more than twice as fast as the other party. Swoosh. The wind was biting cold. Yi Chen slashed out with his sword. The black sword chi was like a crack in the void, attacking the crowd from dozens of miles away. Swoosh. A large amount of blood rained down. This sword directly killed more than 100 people. Without any pause, Yi Chen slashed out again. A black thunder ball streaked across the sky. Immediately, the other people on the Golden Dragon chariot also arrived at the best attacking distance. One after another, they all launched their strongest attacks. The mighty chi surged out like a tidal wave. With one round of attacks, the hook-nosed middle-aged man and his group were completely annihilated. One couldn't blame them for being weak. It could only be said that the Golden Dragon chariot had gathered the strongest forces: Yi Chen, Chen Yuxin, Luo Yunsong, and Xing Meilian. Just Yi Chen alone could fight against half a group. If he couldn't kill the other party, then it would be strange. The other members of the Sky Eagle cult had the same fate as the hook-nosed middle-aged man. Although they had caused trouble for the people of the Azure Dragon Hall, they still couldn't break out of the encirclement. Out of the 13 groups, only 4 were left, with less than 400 people. When the people of the Black Dragon Hall, White Dragon Hall, and Crimson Dragon Hall arrived, the 1,300 people of the Sky Eagle cult had already been annihilated. Of course, it couldn't be said that these 3 groups didn't play a role. If it weren't for them, The hook-nosed middle-aged man wouldn't have chosen to escape. Instead, he would have split up and fought with Yi Chen's group to the death. In that case, even if Yi Chen's group could kill them all, they would have to pay a big price. Haha, Yi Chen, long time no see. Mo Feng and Yi Chen could be considered to be very close. Yi Chen smiled and said, "Thank you all for coming to help." Deputy Yi, what are you saying? The Sky Eagle cult is our common enemy. This is our duty. The other two hall leaders didn't dare to treat Yi Chen as an ordinary deputy, so they replied politely. Yi Chen said, "If nothing unexpected happens, the number of people from the Water Wave Sect, Black King Gate, and Whirlwind Gate won't be small. What awaits us is a tough battle. Who's afraid of who? We're not here for sightseeing. No matter what, we have to kill a bunch of people." The leader of the Crimson Dragon Hall was a bearded man with a rare bandit aura. However, in terms of individual strength, he was on par with the leader of the Black Dragon Hall, second only to the leader of the Azure Dragon Hall, Wei Longdao. The leader of the Black Dragon Hall was a cold middle-aged man with a heavy killing intent. He opened his mouth and said, "Let this place become the nightmare of the four forces." Left Hall leader is right. Let this place become the nightmare of the four forces. A cold light flickered in Mo Feng's eyes as well. 3 hall masters and 1 deputy. The aura of the 4 standing together was simply too powerful, instantly becoming the center of attention. Although Yi Chen had only been a deputy for a short time, his personal accomplishments were simply too frightening. His aura was not below that of the 3 in front of him, and it seemed as if he was the leader. The 4 gathered for a while before separating. Just like before, the Black Dragon Hall, Crimson Dragon Hall, and White Dragon Hall spread out, staying 100 li away from Yi Chen's group. This distance was neither too far nor too close, just outside the range of Sea of Soul Realm experts' soul power detection. They could quickly rush over to help. They were waiting for the other 3 forces to arrive. The first to arrive were the people of the Whirlwind Gate. Something's wrong. Where are the people of the Sky Eagle cult? The leader of the Yin Wind Hall, He Lungji, creased his brows as his speed involuntarily slowed down. The people of the Sky Eagle cult have already been repelled by us. Seems like you guys will also follow in their footsteps. From afar, Yi Chen's voice was heard. He didn't say that the people of the Sky Eagle cult had been completely annihilated. Instead, he said that they had repelled the enemy to avoid raising their guard. After all, being completely annihilated and repelled were 2 different concepts. Follow in their footsteps. Humph. So what if you've repelled them? This place will become your burial ground. He Lungji didn't doubt him. In his opinion, Yi Chen must have brought a lot of people, perhaps even more than 2,000. After repelling the people of the Sky Eagle cult, their losses were not low either, leaving only 1,100 people. On his side, there were more than 1,600 people. Adding the people of the Black King Gate and Water Wave Sect, who were also about to arrive, there was no doubt about it. Kill. With an explanation, He Lungji let out a sigh of relief. With a wave of his hand, he led his people toward Yi Chen's group. Defend with all your strength. Yi Chen didn't prepare to attack. Instead, he organized his people to raise a Jin Yuan barrier. Boom 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 boom. A large number of attacks landed on the barrier, forcing Yi Chen's group to retreat several dozen li. Kill. Right at this moment, He Lungji's left, right, and right rear, 3 groups of people charged over. Because the distance between them was only 100 li, and their attention had been diverted by Yi Chen's group, by the time they recovered, it was already too late to escape. You dare lie to me? Are the people of the Sky Eagle cult completely annihilated? He Lungji's anger flared up, his eyes spewing fire. It's too late for you to know. Yi Chen declined to comment. Even if I die, I'll drag you guys down with me. He Lungji knew that he couldn't escape, so he led his people and recklessly charged toward Yi Chen, shortening the distance between them. Counterattack. Yi Chen wasn't afraid of the enemy before, but to prevent them from escaping. That was why he retreated step by step, pulling the enemy into the best ambush spot. Withdrawing the Zhen Yuan barrier, thousands of attacks blasted out. A large number of attacks collided, forming a death zone that extended several dozen li. At this moment, the people of the Black Dragon Hall, Red Dragon Hall, and White Dragon Hall were already 30 li away. Rumble. The three parties each sent out a round of attacks. Immediately, miserable screams resounded. Hundreds of Whirlwind Gates experts died on the spot. After 2 rounds of attacks, the people of the Whirlwind Gate followed the footsteps of the Sky Eagle cult's people, completely annihilated. Haha, great. The Red Dragon Hall leader had never killed so happily before. His eyes were bloodshot, and his killing intent soared. Chapter 696. Deputy Yi is truly a godly person. When Palace Master was here, although the 4 forces didn't dare to press too hard, the overall situation in Blood Battle Ocean was still a notch above Dragon God Celestial Palace. After Palace Master went into seclusion, our Dragon God Celestial Palace didn't have a big victory. Occasionally, we would turn the tables, but it didn't matter. Yeah, it's only been an hour, and we've already killed more than 2,000 people. This is definitely a big victory. Previously, Yi Chen was only famous in Azure Dragon Hall. The other 3 halls didn't know much about Yi Chen, thinking that it was a blind cat bumping into a dead mouse. But now, the experts of the 3 halls were filled with reverence for Yi Chen. In their eyes, Yi Chen wasn't the Azure Dragon Hall leader, but he was even more powerful. Yi Chen, with you here, the situation in Blood Battle Ocean is under our control. Mo Feng sighed endlessly. Who could have expected that a single Yi Chen could flip the situation in Blood Battle Ocean upside down? If he didn't see it with his own eyes, he would have doubted it. I only have some special abilities. Ordinary Sea of Soul Realm experts could only cover 100 li, while Yi Chen could cover 500 li. This was a huge advantage that couldn't be crossed. If he didn't have soul power, Yi Chen wouldn't be able to take the initiative and toy with the enemy. Special abilities are also a part of your strength. You're more suited for battle than us. The Black Dragon Hall leader said. Yi Chen faintly smiled, not saying anything. Black King Gate and Water Wave Sect's experts had better luck. En route, they bumped into each other. Their numbers reached more than 3,000, and they were majestically rushing over. What welcomed them were 5,000 people, an increase of 2,000. Retreat. The black-robed leader's expression changed drastically as he roared. Chase. With a wave of his hand, Yi Chen and the other 3 palaces converged and chased after them. The reason why they did not surround them was because they did not have enough people. Normally, it would only make sense to surround them if they had 3 times more people than the enemies. Otherwise, it would give the enemies a chance to take them out one by one. After all, this was not a normal army, but an army made up of astral-reaching realm warriors and above. Both sides, one in front and one behind, madly chased after each other. However, in terms of average strength, Dragon God Celestial Palace was undoubtedly superior to the other 4 forces. Their overall speed was much higher. Roughly 2 hours later, the distance between the 2 sides had shrunk to 30 li, reaching the optimal attacking distance. Without the need for Yi Chen's order, everyone unleashed their ultimate moves, attacking the experts of Black King Gate and Water Wave Sect. Rumble. The experts of Black King Gate and Water Wave Sect had no choice but to join hands to set up a defense. But as a result, their speed gradually slowed down, and it became even more difficult to get rid of Yi Chen and the rest. 5,000 people launched a joint attack, shaking the enemy camp's Jinyuan barrier to the point where it was on the verge of collapse. Ripples spread out in all directions, and from time to time, there would be people spitting out blood as they were injured. Elder Zhao, what should we do? The black-robed leader of Black King Gate looked at the green-robed leader of Water Wave Sect. The green-robed old man's face was extremely unsightly as he said word by word, "If this goes on, our casualties will only increase. Once it accumulates to a certain extent, we won't even have the qualifications to fight to the death with them. At present, the best method is to counterattack and fight to the death with them. Can we fight? Even if we can't, we still have to fight. Our numbers aren't small, 3,200 people, while the other side has 5,000. It's not like we don't have the power to fight. All right, let's fight." The black-robed man was not an indecisive person. Being forced into desperate straits, a cruel glint flickered in his eyes, as if he had turned from a human into a ferocious beast. All-out counterattack. Finally, the experts of Black King Gate and Water Wave sect no longer blindly fled. Instead, they turned around, preparing to fight to the death with Yi Chen and the rest. Kill. There was no need for words between the two sides. The moment they met, they would kill. Thousands of attacks blasted together, turning the area between the two sides into a starry river of death. Anyone who entered would instantly be blasted into dregs, leaving not even bones behind. At this moment, individual battle strength was no longer important. Even Yi Chen couldn't contend against thousands of people. The moment he was alone, he would be killed in an instant. Of course, if he wholeheartedly wanted to escape, no matter how many people there were, they wouldn't be able to stop Yi Chen. Using the defensive sword art, Yi Chen's speed was already not inferior to the attack speed of ordinary Sea of Soul Realm experts. He could completely shake off the attacks. Peng 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 peng. The battle of thousands of people was too spectacular, too frightening. Both sides no longer had any other thoughts. The only thought on their minds was to use their best moves. As for anything else, they couldn't be bothered to think about it. This battle lasted for an hour. Finally, the experts of Black King Gate and Water Wave sect began to show signs of decline. The reason they were able to resist until now was because the attacks of Yi Chen and the rest were too concentrated. A lot of them were wasted. After all, Jin Yuan could be fused together for a short period of time, but killing moves and the like were very hard to fuse. The moment they came into contact, they would cancel each other out, turning into pure Jin Yuan. However, an advantage was an advantage. As time passed, Yi Chen's side maintained their peak condition. On the other hand, the other side, due to going all out, started to show signs of exhaustion. This was especially true for the astral reaching experts. Because they had swallowed a large amount of pellets, the purity of their Jin Yuan kept dropping, greatly reducing their attack power. On the other hand, on Yi Chen's side, the frequency of their astral reaching experts taking pellets was less than half of the other side. After all, they had the advantage in numbers, so they didn't need to put in so much effort. Rumble. Another quarter of an hour passed, and the experts of Black King Gate and Water Wave sect could no longer maintain the situation. A gap was blasted open on the left side, and hundreds of people turned into a part of the Zhan Yuan, turning into ashes. Only bits and pieces of storage rings were left behind, falling into the ocean. Everyone, hold on. Killing one is breaking even, killing two is killing one. The green-robed old man attacked while boosting the morale. Hall leader is right. Since we're all going to die, we might as well drag one down with us. Without a doubt, desperate situations could make people go crazy and hysterical. This kind of hysteria in an army composed of ordinary people would only be a bad thing. However, in a sect war, it could often erupt with frightening might. Even the weakest among them was early astral reaching realm. Their potential was far greater than ordinary people. In a state of selflessness, they could even burn their life force. Swoosh. The attacks were concentrated on purpose. Yi Chen's side also lost dozens of people. Of course, they were already prepared. Their numbers reached several thousand, so it would be impossible for them not to lose one person. If both sides had 10 times more people, with each side having several tens of thousands of people, Yi Chen would at most have the confidence to defeat the other side, but it would be impossible for him to completely annihilate the other side. This was the unknown brought by quantity. Unfortunately, the eruption of potential had a limit, and it couldn't be continued forever. Moreover, Yi Chen's side didn't dare to be negligent. Each and every one of them had their nerves stretched to the limit. Their offensive power increased by 100 feet, once again suppressing the other side and increasing the number of kills to 700. As their numbers decreased, it was like a vicious cycle. The number of casualties kept increasing, and the more casualties there were, the more they couldn't hold on. It was like a rolling snowball, getting bigger and bigger, becoming more and more ridiculous. They were only a step away from being completely routed. We can't hold on any longer. Find an opportunity and run. The green-robed old man knew that the defeat was already decided, so he transmitted to the black-robed leader of Black King Gate. I know. The black-robed man gritted his teeth. When the casualties of Black King Gate and Water Wave sect reached 2,000, dozens of figures suddenly separated from the group and flew towards the back. The two leading them were the green-robed old man and the black-robed man. "You guys continue the attack, I'll chase." Yi Chen soared into the sky, and 5 sword lights appeared around his body. The sword lights were different from before, and they seemed to be moving backwards. With a swish, Yi Chen turned into a cyan sword light and disappeared in a flash. "Haha, how can I be left out?" The leader of the Red Dragon Hall led a dozen people and chased after Yi Chen. Soon after, the leader of the Black Dragon Hall and the leader of the White Dragon Hall, Mo Feng, also led a dozen people and soared into the sky. It didn't matter if they stayed or not. If 4,000 people couldn't even take down 1,000 enemies, then they might as well just smash their heads against the wall. In fact, the situation was even better than they had imagined. Seeing that their hall leaders had escaped, how could the experts of Black King Gate and Water Wave sect still have the mood to fight? They all scattered in all directions, thinking that they would have a chance to escape in the chaos. However, doing so would only make them die faster. A random wave of attacks would be enough to annihilate them one by one. "Brother son, let's split up." The green-robed old man and the black-robed man split into 2 groups and fled. Yi Chen, who was chasing after them, gave up on the black-robed man and chased after the green-robed old man alone. The leader of the White Dragon Hall, Mo Feng, was afraid that something might happen to Yi Chen, so he also chased after the green-robed old man. As for the leaders of the Black Dragon Hall and the Red Dragon Hall, they chased after the black-robed man together. Although the sword light flying art was not as fast as the Imperial sword flying art, it was Yi Chen's special ability after all. With a flicker, he could cover several li. Soon, the distance between him and the green-robed old man was less than 50 li. "Kid, you're courting death." The green-robed old man's eyes flickered with a green light. He suddenly turned around and led 20 people toward Yi Chen. He didn't believe that Yi Chen alone could fight against 20 of them. It should be known that his strength was also very high, and he was absolutely a hall leader level expert. Even if he was alone, he might not be afraid of Yi Chen. 20 people charged forward aggressively like tigers and wolves. The distance between the two sides continued to shrink. 50 li, 40 li, 35 li, not good. Mo Feng's complexion changed as he hurriedly yelled to the people behind him, "Hurry up and support Deputy Yi." Yes. The people Mo Feng brought were all great experts with late sea of Soul Realm cultivation base. Each of them had experienced hundreds of battles and could hold their own. Seeing that Yi Chen was in danger, they secretly increased their speed, surpassing their own limits. Facing 20 people, Yi Chen was not afraid at all. Holding the Thunder Disaster Sword in his right hand, he raised it high above his head. The tip of the sword emitted a dark golden radiance. "Go to hell!" When the distance between them was only 30 li, the green-robed old man and the 20 people beside him simultaneously roused their Jin Yuan, preparing to unleash their ace attacks. Unfortunately, even though they were fast, Yi Chen was even faster. Gold ripple. The Thunder Disaster Sword descended, and a dark golden ripple light beam shot out. Wherever it went, the sky darkened, and a dark golden trace streaked across. Poochie, Poochie, Poochie. Without any suspense, the 20 people, including the green-robed old man, were turned into ashes by this sword attack. Upper-grade artifacts and storage rings flew everywhere, flickering with light. At this point, this operation was nearing completion. Under the leadership of Yi Chen, the total losses of the 4 opposing forces had reached a frightening level. Moreover, Yi Chen's battle record was also at a frightening level. In the history of the Dragon God Celestial Palace, perhaps no one could compete with him in battle record. Chapter 697. Hiss. Mo Feng had long since known that Yi Chen's strength was at the inhuman level. He had sparred with Yi Chen many times in South Rudra region. However, he didn't expect that Yi Chen had already reached the level where he could instantly kill dozens of people. It should be known that his opponents were not ordinary Sea of Soul Realm experts, but late Sea of Soul Realm experts. Especially the green-robed old man. As the leader of Water Wave sect, His strength could only be higher than Mo Feng's. However, in front of Yi Chen, he was no different from an ordinary Sea of Soul Realm expert. I'm afraid this guy is only one step away from half-step king realm, Mo Feng said inwardly. In terms of profound will and battle experience, half-step kings were not much more powerful than peak masters. Their strength lay in their Jin Yuan. Life and Death Realm Jin Yuan was called King Jin Yuan, while half-step King Jin Yuan was called half-step King Jin Yuan. Half-step King Jin Yuan was no longer a liquid Jin Yuan, but a solid one. It could easily condense into a Jin Yuan crystal. Even if this Jin Yuan crystal lost control, it wouldn't dissipate, and would continue to exist. Most importantly, Jin Yuan crystals could be provided to others for cultivation, and were classified as half-step extreme-grade energy crystals. It was said that King Jin Yuan could even condense into all kinds of gems, diamonds, and even some special crystals. Moreover, the hardness of the things condensed by King Jin Yuan was far beyond ordinary. For example, a Jin Yuan gem was at least 10 times harder than a gem of the same grade. Putting away the storage ring and some damaged upper-grade artifacts, Yi Chen turned around and said, "Big brother Mo, you go back and take charge of the situation. I'll go check out the situation on the other side." The leader of Black King sect was not much weaker than the leaders of Red Dragon Hall and Black Dragon Hall. If he had some life-saving secret arts, he might be able to escape from the hands of the two. Yi Chen had to go and take a look. "All right, I don't think I'll be needed." Mo Feng shook his head with a bitter smile and led his people back the way they came. Waiting until Mo Feng and the others were far away, the gold sword on Yi Chen's back automatically took out of its scabbard, turning into a beam of gold light that appeared right in front of him. Stepping on it, Yi Chen pushed his Jin Yuan and soul power. Shoo! The gold sword carried Yi Chen and shot out with dozens of times the speed of sound, leaving a clear sword mark in the air that did not disappear for a long time. "Haha, just the two of you want to keep me here?" The black-robed man was fighting the Red Dragon Hall Master and the Black Dragon Hall Master alone. Although he was at an absolute disadvantage, he was still undefeated. It wasn't because he was stronger than the other two. In fact, the three of them were about the same. However, the black-robed man had an extremely powerful water ultimacy defensive martial art. This defensive martial art was like a ball of pale green water that wrapped around the black-robed man. When the attacks of the Red Dragon Hall Master and the Black Dragon Hall Master landed on it, they were either weakened or deflected. They only had 30 to 40% of their power left. "This guy is so powerful. Watch my Scarlet Python Silk Palm." The Red Dragon Hall Master was a hot-tempered man. After attacking for a long time without success, his eyes opened wide like two bronze bells. With a roar, he threw out a palm attack. 4 to 46 flame pythons coiled around the black-robed man's body, strangling him. Break! The black-robed old man's face turned red as he threw out a palm attack, shattering 9 flame pythons in an instant. Extermination space-shattering cut. The Black Dragon Hall Master's weapon was a semi-extreme grade black blade. As he waved it out, a blade light with extermination chi slashed at the green water around the black-robed man's body. Although the blade did not cut through the green water, it still left a gap. Ha. The Crimson Dragon Hall Master and the Black Dragon Hall Master had a tacit understanding. The moment the saber beam slashed a hole in the green wave, they immediately controlled a flaming python to enter. However, the black-robed man was no pushover either. The green wave condensed into a solid state, trapping the flaming python inside and preventing it from entering. Unfortunately, the Red Dragon Hall Master's goal had been achieved. Explode! The Red Dragon Hall Master roared, and the flame python immediately exploded, blowing up the green water and splashing water everywhere. Half of the black-robed man's body was scorched black, and he had suffered serious internal injuries. "The two of you will die in my hands one day." The black-robed man groaned as blood flowed out of his 7 orifices, and his hair was disheveled. "Let's talk about that after you leave this place alive." As the Red Dragon Hall Master spoke, the 6 flame pythons around the black-robed man also exploded. The surging flames collided and formed a huge flaming mushroom cloud. Water transformation escape. At this moment, the black-robed man's figure turned into a green stream, escaping into the distance. His speed was so fast that it left no trace. Not good. The Red Dragon Hall Master and the Black Dragon Hall Master's expressions changed as they chased after him. The black-robed man seemed to have used a secret art that overdrafted his potential. His speed became faster and faster, leaving the 24 li behind. It looked like they would not be able to catch up. Abruptly, rip. A black sword light flickered, and the green stream was cut in two. The black-robed man did not even have the time to let out a scream before he was dismembered. The one who killed the black-robed man was none other than Yi Chen. He had sensed the black-robed man from several hundred li away. Switching from imperial sword flight to sword light flight art, he charged at the black-robed man at his highest speed and slashed at close range. Deputy Yi. The Red Dragon Hall Master heaved a sigh of relief. Are you two all right? The Red Dragon Hall Master smiled and said, what could happen to us? But I didn't expect this guy to have so many life-saving methods. First, it was the green water wave, then the super-powerful water escape art. Although the black-robed man's battle strength was comparable to the two, it would be difficult for the two to take him down even if they joined hands. Thinking about it, it made sense. Under normal circumstances, if one wanted to kill an expert of the same level, unless the opponent did not run away, it would require 3 people to have a chance. Not everyone was as all-round as Yi Chen. By the time the 3 returned to the battlefield, the battle had already ended. The troops of Black King Gate and Water Wave Sect had been completely annihilated, while Dragon God Celestial Palace's side had lost more than 200 people. In this battle, the 4 opposing forces had lost 6,000 troops. It had to be said that it was extremely bitter, and they would probably not be able to recover for a long time. After returning to the Azure Dragon Hall, this great news spread at an astonishing speed, and Yi Chen once again became the focal point. Many people called Yi Chen the war god of Dragon God Celestial Palace. With him, the army of Dragon God Celestial Palace would be invincible. Yi Chen had made such a huge contribution, so the rewards were naturally not lacking. Although most of the rewards were useless to him, Yi Chen had Yi family and Sky Cloud sect. The more rewards, the better. After all, although his status was high, Dragon God Celestial Palace was not founded by him. He could at most take some things that were useful to him. He couldn't very well use his position to take away a large amount of resources for Yi family and Sky Cloud sect. Apart from the rewards, Dragon God Celestial Palace also awarded Yi Chen a Dragon God Medal. This medal was the highest honor of an individual in Dragon God Celestial Palace. It was also a special artifact that could store a large amount of Jin Yuan, roughly equivalent to a third of Yi Chen's Jin Yuan. It was absolutely priceless. As for the others, apart from the rewards, they also received a medal. For example, Lin Sunghai, Chen Yusin, and Luo Yunsong, as disciples of Dragon God Celestial Palace, each received an Iron Blood Medal, which was ranked 3rd. The other 3 Hall Masters received Battle Dragon Medal, which was similar to the Iron Blood Medal. In short, the number of medals awarded this time was much more than in the past 10 years, because the achievements of the past 10 years couldn't compare to this one. Time flew by in a leisurely manner. On the boundless blood battle ocean, the flames of war could be seen everywhere. The battle had already entered its final stage. Dark Devour. Beside Yi Chen, a purple-robed masked woman formed a seal with both hands. Her movements were so fast that it was dazzling to the eyes. Outside her body, waves of deep dark power rippled out. Pop! Near the enemy's leader, a collapsing and rotating dark sphere appeared. This dark sphere was like a black hole, emitting a frightening gravitational force. It immediately swallowed this powerful enemy, leaving no bones behind. Soon after, the dark sphere swelled a few times and twisted, seeming as if it was about to collapse. Then, the storage ring and the upper-grade artifact were spat out. Powerful. Yi Chen praised. He could tell that this dark devour of Murong Qingcheng was created by imitating a black hole. It had a devouring effect, and would only dissipate after devouring a sufficient amount of mass. In other words, one couldn't avoid this killer move without paying a price. If one didn't have enough strength, they would only be devoured. The structure is still not too stable, unless I can see a real black hole. Murong Qingcheng blinked her eyes, somewhat dissatisfied. You can't become fat in one bite. Although we can't go to the starry sky, True Spirit Continent has some dangers similar to black holes. If there's an opportunity, we'll certainly see it. Time passed by in a flash. Half a month ago, Murong Qingcheng finally created her own dark profound martial skill, Dark Devour. Although this profound martial skill had yet to be perfected, its lethality wasn't weak. Even against experts of the same level, it would have a certain effect. Therefore, Murong Qingcheng temporarily put aside her bitter cultivation and came to Dragon God Celestial Palace. She had long since known that Yi Chen and Xu Jing had a tacit understanding. This time, she had come to see Xu Jing. Unfortunately, Xu Jing had been in seclusion for many years, and no one knew what her seclusion signified. In short, Murong Qingcheng subconsciously believed that Xu Jing was her greatest rival. Although she didn't really reject Xu Jing, she always had a sense of crisis, and couldn't act as if nothing had happened. In this 1 year, Yi Chen had experienced dozens of battles, big and small. Every battle ended with victory. In these battles, the 4 opposing forces were on guard and began to be cautious. Therefore, although victory belonged to Yi Chen, the number of times he was completely annihilated was few and far between. The situation in Blood Battle Ocean had also gradually stabilized, with both sides restraining themselves and no longer acting unscrupulously. After such a long period of battle, Yi Chen felt somewhat bored. He had already thought of resigning from his position and returning to the continent. The current leader of Azure Dragon Hall was none other than the 18th Elder of the Elders Association, Elder Yu. He had been temporarily acting as the leader for more than a year. Although his strength was inferior to Wei Longtao's, and even inferior to the leaders of Black Dragon Hall, Red Dragon Hall, and White Dragon Hall, he wasn't weak either. He had a very close relationship with Yi Chen. The battles were simply too easy, and the enemies simply couldn't raise any waves. Murong Qingcheng said, "During your absence, the continent has experienced a storm. Right now, although the first rank is still yours, the following ranks have been occupied by other geniuses. Du Guju is ranked 2nd, Dantai Mingyu is ranked 3rd, Bai Wuxue is 4th, Yang Fengfeng is 5th, Lu Xiaoyu is 8th, and Xia Hozuan is 9th. Sichu Hao, who exchanged the defensive sword art with you, is full of momentum, surpassing Godly Shark Princess and Xiao Chuhe, who are not active on the continent. Beiming Hui is ranked 16th, and Chu Zhongtian is ranked 18th. Moreover, Du Guju had once defeated an old monster who was equally famous as Sky Sword Master, Nirvana Blade Master. The change is indeed great. Yi Chen didn't feel surprised. For the older generation masters, a year's time couldn't make much progress. However, for the peak geniuses, it was the time for them to advance by leaps and bounds. He didn't doubt that he wouldn't be able to keep his first rank in the ranking. The competition was too intense. Chapter 698. As time passed, the frequency of battles in Blood Battle Ocean became lower and lower. In the past, there would be at least a dozen battles in a month. Now, 1 battle a month was already not bad. Both sides seemed to have reached a tacit understanding. When one side was transporting resources, the other side wouldn't ambush the other, and when the other side was transporting resources, the other side wouldn't ambush the other. Otherwise, they would have to fight for their lives. Clearly, neither side had made any preparations. Dragon God Celestial Palace was uncertain because Dragon King hadn't come out of seclusion. The 4 opposing forces were also apprehensive of Dragon King, afraid of going too far. Once Dragon King came out of seclusion, they would inevitably seek justice. Without battles, Yi Chen naturally didn't intend to stay. He had come to Dragon God Celestial Palace precisely to redeem the situation, and he had already accomplished more than he could. On this day, Yi Chen arrived at the headquarters of Dragon God Celestial Palace and resigned from the position of Azure Dragon Hall Deputy. Although the elders of Elders Association were reluctant, they knew that they couldn't force him to stay. Moreover, Blood Battle Ocean was currently peaceful. Keeping Yi Chen here would only be a waste of time. Let's go. Inside the hall, Yi Chen and Murong Qingcheng entered the conveyor gate. South Rudra Sect, Conveyor chamber, buzz. Two figures walked out of the conveyor gate. Yi Chen. Long Bai was waiting outside the conveyor gate. Upon seeing Yi Chen, her face revealed a faint smile. Sect leader Long. Yi Chen cupped his fists. This time, it's all thanks to you. I didn't expect that you alone could reverse the situation in Blood Battle Ocean. Long Bai was in a good mood. It was no wonder that Yi Chen had resolved the crisis of Dragon God Celestial Palace. Back then, when Yi Chen had gone, she had never thought that Yi Chen would help Dragon God Celestial Palace suppress the four opposing forces. As long as they could maintain the situation, it would be fine. It could be said that Yi Chen's performance had far exceeded her expectations, frightening her. Yi Chen said, "To help Dragon God Celestial Palace overcome this crisis, Yi Chen is very honored. Sect leader Long, don't regard me as an outsider. Moreover, I'm also a member of Dragon God Celestial Palace." That's true. Long Bai smiled. Although Yi Chen had resigned from his position as the Azure Dragon Hall's Vice Hall Master, he was still the esteemed Dragon God Envoy. After chatting with Long Bai for a while, Yi Chen and Murong Qingcheng returned to the Yi clan. In the past year, Yi Chen had come back 3 times. With the teleportation gate, it was very convenient. If it weren't for the fact that teleportation consumed a lot of top-grade spirit stones, Yi Chen could have come back once a day. After fighting for more than a year, Yi Chen was also a little tired. In the following week, he did not cultivate, nor did he think too much about things. Every day, he lived a leisurely life, chatting with his parents, playing with his younger brother and sister, or spending time with Murong Qingcheng. During this period of time, Yi Chen had gone through the most important baptism of his life. One night, Yi Chen and Murong Qingcheng joined together. That night, the two tossed and turned until the next morning. Murong Qingcheng's body was extremely perfect, smooth like silk, tall and slender, neither too thin nor too voluptuous. Due to the two's Sea of Soul Realm cultivation base, their endurance was astonishing. A night of absurdity had instead left them in high spirits. Vaguely, the two's temperament had somewhat changed. At least, on the next day, when Yi Tianhao and Shen Yuqing saw Yi Chen and Murong Qingcheng, they faintly smiled, as if they knew something. Yi Chen was already 27 years old. This was the first time he had lost his virginity, so he was always a bit impulsive. Whenever he had the chance, he would make love to Murong Qingcheng. Moreover, Murong Qingcheng's charm was really huge. Due to the fact that she trained demon power, her demon body gave people a noble and alluring feeling, as if she was a combination of angel and demon. On the bed, Murong Qingcheng was very proactive, which was completely different from her usual calmness. All in all, in this short period of time, the two enjoyed a life that could only be envied by lovebirds, and were extremely grateful. The morning air was fresh and moist, and the chirping of birds could be heard from outside. Opening his eyes, Yi Chen looked at Murong Qingcheng lying beside him and revealed a trace of a smile. In his sight, Murong Qingcheng's jade-like body was lying horizontally, only covered by a thin piece of silk. Her stunning curves could not be covered at all. Her perky buttocks were half covered, revealing a snow-white bulge. Her chest had an exaggerated curve, seeming to be even fuller than before. Under the silk, 2 protruding points could be seen. "How many times did we do it yesterday? It should be 5 times. With a bitter smile, Yi Chen got off the bed naked and went to the bathroom to wash his body. After washing up, Murong Qingcheng had already woken up. She stretched, and the silk on her body immediately slid down. "Little vixen." Yi Chen walked over and kissed her. Murong Qingcheng blinked her eyes, enjoying the kiss. After tossing and turning for a long time, Yi Chen finally walked out of the bedroom and arrived at the courtyard. This courtyard was one of the most luxurious courtyards of the Yi family. There was a forest, a lake, a garden, and even a rock garden, as well as a pavilion. It was like a small paradise. Sucking in a deep breath, Yi Chen arrived before the lake with his long sword. Chop! Grabbing the air with both hands, Yi Chen chopped down. Whoosh! The air surged, and a straight mark appeared on the lake. Strange. My Jin Yuan seems to have grown a lot. I'm about to break through to late Sea of Soul Realm. Yi Chen could feel the surging Zhenyuan in his body like a torrential river. It was endless and filled with a kind of tension. Without thinking too much, Yi Chen calmed his mind and gradually entered a state of cultivation. Currently, other than the void-shattering finger, the golden ripple, the sword control art, and the blood-severing ghost finger, all of his other martial arts had long reached perfection. As for void-shattering finger, Yi Chen had already reached 90% completion more than a year ago. Although perfection was not that easy to reach, Yi Chen had a feeling that as long as there was an opportunity, he would be able to reach greater completion and reach 100% completion. On the other hand, the gold ripple was much more difficult. This was a high-rank profound martial art. After more than a year of bitter training and tempering, he had only managed to raise it from 30 to 40% to 40 to 50%. However, this was already very terrifying. In terms of power, it was close to the defensive sword technique, and was not much weaker than it. Yi Chen had always believed that exchanging the defensive sword art with Sichu Hao was his greatest harvest. Currently, the defensive sword art was still at the peak of the second layer. However, be it speed or offense, it was not second place. It was definitely a killer move. Sichu Hao being able to shine so brightly on the master's list was unknown to Yi Chen, but it was not important. Even if the latter were to be ranked second or even push him down, Yi Chen would not regret it. The latter was able to surpass him because of his talent. Without talent, even if the best resources were given to him, he would not be able to achieve much. At most, he would only be able to become a rare expert. Since the defensive sword art was powerful enough, Yi Chen would not look down on the blood-severing ghost finger. This finger art was too strange. As soon as the finger slashed out, a strange scene appeared. The white-robed departed soul's figure became increasingly clear. Once, Yi Chen even saw it smiling at him. He didn't know whether it was an illusion or not, because it was too real. It was hard to tell the difference. Perhaps Dragon King knew what was going on, but he was in seclusion. The peak of the second layer of the defensive sword art has stabilized enough. Now, I can attempt the third layer. The third realm would allow him to create Zhenyuan flying swords. With his soul power and sword intent, the power of one Zhenyuan flying sword would be able to instantly kill a top master level warrior. If he were to use 100 or even 1,000 swords at the same time, its power would be unimaginable. Of course, in the history, the highest power of Sea of Souls realm sword artists was 72 swords at the same time. Legend had it that someone had reached 81 swords at the same time, but no one knew if it was true or not. Southern Sector, Golden Sand Region. In a super luxurious restaurant, Chu Zhongtian and the geniuses of Golden Sand Region were drinking. Sitting next to Chu Zhongtian was his junior sister, Rakshasa. She had purple hair and purple eyes, looking extremely enchanting. She had a fiery figure and a bewitching appearance. Brother Chu, you are now the most famous figure in our southern sector. Allow me to offer you a toast. Clearly, the geniuses of Golden Sand Region all looked up to Chu Zhongtian. After all, Chu Zhongtian used to be a tycoon of southern sector. And now, Chu Zhongtian was already an expert of the master's ranking, ranked within the top 20. This glory was enough to shock the entire southern sector. Although Edict Prince and Thunder Princess were still dazzling, they paled in comparison to Chu Zhongtian. Because of his relationship with Chu Zhongtian's sect could be said to be unparalleled in the southern sector. There were many youngsters who joined the sect. No matter what, a 5th grade sect was still a 5th grade sect. It was a king sect, not something small sects could compare with. Chu Zhongtian's expression was indifferent, without any pretense. However, everyone was used to this side of Chu Zhongtian. If Chu Zhongtian spoke in a pleasant manner, it would be surprising. Eldest brother, let me pour you some wine. Rakshasa's name was Ju Maiting, and she was Chu Zhongtian's second junior sister. The two had always had an ambiguous relationship. However, Ju Maiting always thought that Chu Zhongtian was too tyrannical, changing women like changing clothes. Therefore, she didn't expose their relationship. However, as Chu Zhongtian established himself in the Sky Martial region, Ju Maiting started to feel a sense of crisis. She took the initiative to maintain the relationship between the two. She believed that she would be able to tie down Chu Zhongtian's heart. Brother Chu, you are only at mid-sea of Soul Realm right now, but you are already ranked within the top 20. Once you reach late sea of Soul Realm, you will be invincible within the same generation. Brother Sun is right. Everyone praised Chu Zhongtian. Chu Zhongtian took over the wine cup from Zhu Maiting and drank it all, then said lightly, I have confidence in the others, but there is still Yi Chen in the southern sector. After all these years, Chu Zhongtian had met a lot of horrifying martial geniuses, such as the top 5 young warriors, the 2 top martial geniuses, Sichu Hao and Beiming Hui. None of them were ordinary people. However, there was an image in Chu Zhongtian's mind. Behind those martial geniuses, there was a huge shadow. It was so huge that it almost covered up the whole sky, covering all of the martial geniuses in its shadow. No one could see his face clearly, only that sharp sword chi-like eyes. Chapter 699. Splitting Zhen Yuan flying swords is even more difficult than I thought. Standing in front of the lake, Yi Chen pointed with his finger, and the gold sword came out of its scabbard on its own. The dense sword chi hovered above Yi Chen's head twice, and the gold sword suddenly trembled, splitting into 2 lifelike gold swords. These gold swords were imitated by Zhen Yuan, and the 3 swords merged into one. One shouldn't look down on Zhen Yuan flying swords, as it was not easy at all. The hardest part was to let nature take its course. If Yi Chen were to forcefully split the Zhen Yuan flying swords, not to mention 3 swords, he could even launch 100 swords at the same time. Unfortunately, what was the use? The forcefully split Zhen Yuan flying swords would only be equivalent to an ordinary Zhen Yuan attack. Even if Yi Chen's sword intent was powerful, it wouldn't have much destructive power. After a period of cultivation, Yi Chen could only naturally split 2 Zhen Yuan flying swords. The true Zhen Yuan flying swords had to have at least a third of the original's power. Otherwise, it wouldn't be complete, and wouldn't have enough power. Go! 3 sword shadows shot out, slashing on a somewhat broken upper-grade shield. Poochie! 3 holes immediately appeared on the shield. The hole in the middle was extremely thin, as if it had been carefully polished. The holes on both sides were slightly twisted, and the iron skin was twisted. A strong smell of iron spread out, like sulfur or rotten eggs. This broken upper-grade shield was Yi Chen's spoils of war in Blood Battle Ocean. He had given the intact ones to the Dragon God Celestial Palace, who then gave him sufficient rewards. As for the broken ones, Yi Chen kept a portion and gave the rest to the Dragon God Celestial Palace as well. He discovered that using a broken upper-grade artifact to test the attacking power was extremely effective. After all, no matter how broken an upper-grade artifact was, it was still not something a mid-grade artifact could compare to. To destroy it was not something an ordinary Sea of Soul Master could do. It was the best tool for testing power. Not bad, about a third of the original's power. According to the size and shape of the sword holes, it wasn't hard for Yi Chen to judge the power of the Zhen Yuan flying swords. Poochie! The Zhen Yuan flying swords pierced through the broken upper-grade shield and dissipated in the next instant, turning into 2 wisps of green smoke. Only the golden sword was still as sharp as ever and was not damaged at all. Whoosh! Yi Chen pointed his finger and the golden sword returned to its scabbard. Yi Chen, Auntie is calling you for dinner. Not far away, Murong Qingcheng, who was dressed in a purple robe without a mask, walked over. A fragrant breeze filled the air. Okay, I'll be right there. Let me change first. Yi Chen kissed Murong Qingcheng, turned around, and walked back into the house. Splitting the true essence flying swords required a great deal of concentration, and Yi Chen's body began to sweat. Days passed by. Yi Chen was either cultivating or spending time with Murong Qingcheng. He had plenty of time. One day, a deacon from the pavilion of Luoyang City brought news. It turned out to be a letter from Yang Fengfeng, asking them to meet up in the Sky Marshal region. Because of the long journey, she had given the letter to the #1 information organization in the world, the Knowledge Pavilion, which had stores all over the continent, making it very convenient. After reading the letter, Yi Chen said to Murong Qingcheng, "It has been a long time since I went to the Sky Marshal region. Let's go tomorrow." For most of the martial geniuses, The Sky Martial region was a holy land. But, for Yi Chen, it did not have any special meaning. The higher he stood, the more indifferent he would feel. The journey was long, so there was no need to travel by himself. So, Yi Chen and Murong Qingcheng got on the flying puppet and flew at 10 times the speed of sound toward the Sky Martial region. In this world, normal people did not have much to do, going out early and returning late every day to make a living for their families. There were also rich young men who indulged in sensual pleasures. Along the way, Yi Chen did not let the flying puppet fly too high. They flew past one city after another, seeing a very familiar scene. If he did not have his soul traveling over and was still in that world, his life would probably be one of the people down there. But now, he did not have to worry about his life anymore. All he wanted was to reach the peak of the sword art and explore the mysteries of the world. Without realizing it, Yi Chen realized that he had already left the mortal world and reached a higher level. The people down there were just normal people in his eyes. Perhaps their lives would still be interesting, but what they wanted would be completely different. 1 month later, the two arrived at the Sky Martial region. The place where Yang Fengfeng had invited Yi Chen was in the Lotus City, one of the top 10 cities in the world. The whole city was blue and tall. From far away, Yi Chen could already see the tall buildings in the city. The tall ones were hundreds of meters tall, like towers, while the shorter ones were about the same. They seemed to be endless. Shoo! The flying puppet did not slow down at all, rushing into the city directly. The White Cloud restaurant was one of the top 2 restaurants in the city. Although it was luxurious, it was not extravagant. It was made of ancient cloud wood, and had 18 floors in total. Each floor was 20 meters tall, taking up a lot of space. Sitting on the 18th floor of the restaurant, the clouds in the sky seemed very close, as if they could touch them with their hands. Yi Chen. On the 18th floor, Yang Fengfeng saw Yi Chen and Murong Qingcheng. Beside her were the disciples of the mysterious martial school and Hai Wuya. Putting away the flying puppet, Yi Chen and Murong Qingcheng floated into the 18th floor of the restaurant. Long time no see. Yi Chen cupped his fists. Hai Wuya laughed. You brat, I thought you had forgotten about us. It has been almost 2 years since we last met, right? This time, we have to drink to our heart's content. All right. Yi Chen and Murong Qingcheng sat down and poured themselves a cup of wine, drinking it in one gulp. Great. Hai Wuya and Yang Fengfeng each drank a cup. Senior Brother Yi. Hello, Senior Brother Yi. The disciples of the mysterious martial school and Sky Ocean Martial School greeted Yi Chen one after another. For many of them, it was their first time seeing Yi Chen, so they were a bit reserved. Yi Chen chuckled. Everyone, relax a bit. Hai Wuya said, with you here, they won't be able to relax. Don't you think about your current status among the geniuses? But, you will get used to it. Don't mind it too much. Isn't this sword Master Yi Chen? So, Yang Fengfeng invited him. Each floor of the restaurant could hold hundreds of people, and those who could be on the 18th floor were either the upper echelons of the martial schools or the top geniuses. Many of them had seen Yi Chen before, and some of them could be considered famous figures in the Sky Martial region. But, the second they saw Yi Chen, they all started gossiping and discussing in low voices. Ever since Yi Chen got the title of Swordmaster, he disappeared without a trace. A lot of people said that he was afraid that he could not bear the title. I wonder if those people would still dare to say such things in front of Yi Chen when he comes back. Of course not. They are only talking behind his back. That is true. There are not many who would dare to say it directly. There were a lot of people discussing in low voices, and some of them would look at Yi Chen from time to time. Within a year of Yi Chen's departure, the new ranking had also come out. Du Guju was at the forefront, ranked second. Dan Tai Mingyu shocked the whole crowd the moment she made her move, ranked third. Bai Wuxue had always been at the top level, ranked fourth. The top 20 were almost all occupied by all the top geniuses. The older generation masters were all giving up their positions. As for the first place, it was still Yi Chen. In this era where geniuses were emerging endlessly, Yi Chen was the only one who had been ranked first for 2 consecutive years. In the past, Yi Chen was also one of the many geniuses. But now, his fame had already spread throughout the continent. There were many people who had not seen Yi Chen before, but there were only a pitiful few who had not heard of Yi Chen. However, newborn calves were not afraid of tigers. There were some new geniuses who were not very sure of Yi Chen. They only saw how horrifying Du Guju was, how stunning Dantai Mingyu was, and how elegant Bai Wuxue was. As for Yi Chen, he would probably lose the first place sooner or later. After all, no one could guarantee that they would be in a period of rapid development for more than a year, improving by leaps and bounds. In a situation where there was not much difference, many things could be changed in 1 year, such as the change of the Grandmaster ranking. Sword sects Yi Chen, interesting. There were 3 young men and women sitting at a table near the window. The man on the left had a majestic build. His arms were thicker than ordinary people's legs, and he had a heavy saber on his waist. His eyebrows were very thick and long, and his tiger-like eyes contained a terrifying energy. Next to the majestic young man sat a girl in colorful clothes. She had an exotic charm, big eyes, a high nose bridge, and plump lips. She looked very flirtatious, and her body was incomparably hot. Her skin was a light wheat color, and she looked very healthy. Opposite them was a young man. This person's hands were very long and slender, like bamboo joints. His appearance could not be said to be handsome, but it could not be said to be ugly either. His eyes were narrow and long, and the corners of his eyes were very sharp. At this moment, the corner of his mouth was slightly raised, and there was a trace of evil in it. The clothes of these 3 people did not fit in with the others, and they seemed to have come from very far away. Talking about the sword in front of Brother Liu is just asking to be humiliated. The girl in colorful clothes did not hide her voice at all. Yes. The majestic young man nodded. Who are you people? On a nearby table, a few geniuses who admired Yi Chen creased their brows and asked. We're from the West Ocean. The young man drank his wine without looking sideways. West Ocean? I don't care where you're from, but you'd better have some self-awareness. Yi Chen is not someone you can casually belittle. So what if I belittle him? The young man swirled the wine in his hand, and the sparkling wine swirled around. You're from the West Ocean, and you don't have any achievements on True Spirit Continent. What qualifications do you have to belittle him? The girl in colorful clothes said with a disdainful face, Do you know Lu Xiaoyu? Lu Xiaoyu? Of course I know him. What's the point of talking about him? Although Yi Chen, Du Guju, Dantai Mingyu, and Yang Fengfeng had become the top 5 young tycoons, pushing down Lu Xiaoyu and the rest, Lu Xiaoyu was once one of the top 5 young tycoons. No one knew what realm his strength had reached. Half a year ago, Lu Xiaoyu went to the West Ocean, but he couldn't even take 10 swords from Brother Liu. Your so-called sword master Yi Chen might not be that powerful. What? Lu Xiaoyu couldn't even take 10 swords from him, and that was half a year ago. Half a year ago, Lu Xiaoyu was certainly much more powerful than before, but even he couldn't take 10 swords from this young man. Who exactly was this person? Chapter 700. You're not bragging, are you? There's no proof. I don't believe that Lu Xiaoyu couldn't receive 10 sword strikes from him. The first reaction of the genius who spoke was disbelief, thinking that the other side was exaggerating the truth. For example, after exchanging 10 moves, one side felt that his sword art was slightly inferior and directly admitted defeat. This kind of situation was not unheard of. If it were a life and death battle, exchanging hundreds of moves wouldn't be a problem, but being unable to receive 10 sword strikes was a completely different concept. Bragging. Ask the people of the western regions and see if they've heard of the name West Ocean Sword Master Liu Wujian. The multicolor-robed woman snorted. West Ocean Sword Master was not called West Ocean Sword Master. Its actual meaning was the Sword Master of the West Ocean. If he left the continent, Yi Chen could also be called the continent's Sword Master. After all, Yi Chen's title was obtained on True Spirit Continent. Only on the continent would he be recognized, and vice versa. Clearly, everyone understood the meaning of West Ocean Sword Master's words. Each and every one of them sucked in a breath of cold air. What was going on? Usually, The four shallow oceans and true spirit continent didn't have the title of Swordmaster. Who would have thought that after Yi Chen, another Liu Wujian would appear? One was the continent's Swordmaster, and the other was West Ocean Swordmaster. So he's also a Swordmaster. No wonder he's not convinced of Yi Chen. Everyone suddenly understood. West Ocean Swordmaster, Yi Chen, you've got an opponent now. Hai Wuya said to Yi Chen with a smile. What's so great about West Ocean Swordmaster? Our continent is the Orthodox. A disciple of mysterious sect, who worshipped Yi Chen the most, said in a low voice. Junior brother Wang, don't gossip. Although Yang Fengfeng said so, a smile appeared on her face. Yes, senior sister. I won't say it, but everyone understands. The disciple chuckled. Yi Chen smiled faintly and said, having an opponent is a good thing. I'm just afraid that I won't be able to find an opponent even if I search the entire world. Although Yi Chen was not a life and death king yet, he had already reached a realm where it would be hard to find a worthy opponent in the Sea of Souls realm. Liu Wujian's appearance did not make him unhappy, but instead comforted him. Outside the continent, there were four shallow oceans, and beyond that, there was still the endless ocean. The number of experts in the world was like the carps in the river. He did not need to worry about not being able to find an opponent. Murong Qingcheng knew Yi Chen better than anyone else. She knew that he was a genius swordsman who desired to fight wholeheartedly. She couldn't help but feel proud. This was her man. Under the table, a soft and delicate hand held Yi Chen's palm. The geniuses who had questioned the woman in the colorful dress and the other two were stunned speechless. Their opponents were not nameless figures, they were the masters of the West Ocean Sword Sect, and their status was equal to that of Yi Chen. In that case, it was possible that Lu Xiaoyu could not withstand 10 sword attacks from them. At least, there was a slight possibility. What's wrong? Not speaking. The multicolor-robed woman revealed a mocking expression. Humph. The genius sat back down. Looking at Yi Chen's position, the multicolor-robed woman slightly raised her head and arrogantly said, the title of Sword Sect is not something anyone can bear. If you're smart enough, you'd better give up the title of Sword Sect, lest you humiliate yourself. Naylan, since he can be called Sword Sect, he certainly has some skill. At the very least, he's much stronger than Lu Xiaoyu. You don't need to belittle him. The slender fingers of Liu Wujian didn't raise his head from start to finish, as if nobody could pique his interest. Brother Liu, I'm a straightforward person, and I say whatever I want to say. However, I don't think I'm wrong. Brother Jiyu, don't you agree? The multicolor-robed woman asked the majestic youth. Yes. The majestic youth nodded. Murong Qingcheng was well aware that Yi Chen would either not retaliate, or once he did, it would be a thunderous blow. It was obvious that the multicolor-robed woman couldn't arouse his anger. After all, she could shut one person's mouth, but she couldn't shut the mouths of all the people in the world. If he became very angry when everyone said a few words about him, then his state of mind would be too poor, and he wouldn't be able to endure it. However, she was Yi Chen's woman, and the multicolor-robed woman was also a woman. Women naturally had to be dealt with by women. She couldn't tolerate a woman speaking ill of her man, so she immediately said mockingly, strength isn't determined by words. No matter how extravagant your words are, it's just a fantasy. Who are you? The multicolor-robed woman raised her eyebrows, and her tone was unfriendly. I'm his girlfriend. What's your relationship with the West Ocean Sword Sect? Murong Qingcheng countered with a question. The multicolor-robed woman spoke for a long time, but she didn't continue. It was true that she admired Liu Wujian, but she didn't dare to say that she was Liu Wujian's girlfriend. Once she did, it would undoubtedly make him feel disgusted. After all, there were still a few people who were close to Liu Wujian. You're courting death. The multicolor-robed woman's face flushed, and she raised her arm. A red Jin Yuan whip condensed, and she lashed out at Murong Qingcheng, who was several dozen meters away. Break. Murong Qingcheng's finger was dyed black as she pointed at the tip of the Jin Yuan whip. Puff. The Jin Yuan whip exploded inch by inch, setting off a storm in the restaurant. It rushed out through the window like a beam of light leaking out. You've got some skill. Take my bloodthirsty triple kill. The complexion of the multicolor-robed woman changed, and her expression turned grave. She made a grabbing motion in the air, and the red Zhen Yuan turned into a three-headed scarlet python. This Zhen Yuan python was extremely strange. Its body was very short, but the neck connecting the three heads was very long, even longer than its body. It could instantly attack three distant targets. The three-headed scarlet python flicked its tongue and pounced toward Murong Qingcheng with a fiery intent. Darkness sky curtain. Murong Qingcheng's right hand drew a half-circle in the void before her. Immediately, a layer of black barrier enveloped the area. As the black barrier formed, Yang Fengfeng and Hai Wuya were astonished to discover that they seemed to have been isolated from the outside world. What a powerful profound! Hai Wuya originally thought that although Murong Qingcheng's strength was high, it couldn't be that high. But now, he discovered that he didn't even have the confidence to defeat Murong Qingcheng. He bitterly smiled. Yi Chen was powerful, but his woman was also this powerful. How could he live? Only Yi Chen knew that Murong Qingcheng's strength was not limited to just this. Not to mention Hai Wuya, even Yang Fengfeng might not be able to defeat Murong Qingcheng. With the perfect demonic vessels and demonic power, she was almost equivalent to a human demon's. One could well imagine her battle strength. Pop 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 pop. The three-headed python's attack landed on the black barrier, but it didn't cause a huge explosion. It only produced a slight explosion, as if the energy was absorbed by the barrier. Impossible. The multicolor-robed woman didn't expect Murong Qingcheng's strength to be this high. You take my move as well. After dispersing the darkness sky curtain, Murong Qingcheng once again pointed at the opponent. This time, it was the demonic finger. Even without the wings, it still had 50 to 60% of its might. Fire crystal shield. The multicolor-robed woman hurriedly raised both her hands in the void, condensing a red crystal-like Zhen Yuan shield. The shield's surface was covered in complicated patterns, and one red light after another flowed out. Peng. Unfortunately, Murong Qingcheng's demonic finger was a pure offensive martial skill without a trace of impurities. It easily broke through the fire crystal shield and was about to injure the multicolor-robed woman. Break. Right at this moment, Liu Wujian, who had remained calm and collected, made his move. Without even looking, he raised his left hand's sword fingers and shot out a white-colored sword qi, cutting apart the demonic finger's power. Go. The white sword qi was like a fish swimming in the water. It made a turn in the air and suddenly increased its speed, shooting toward Murong Qingcheng's location. He wasn't targeting Murong Qingcheng, but Yi Chen. If Yi Chen couldn't even take this move of his, then the title of Swordmaster would be in vain, not worthy of his attention. The white sword qi was as fast as lightning. Murong Qingcheng might be able to block it if she used her full strength. However, this was a restaurant, and everyone would hold back when fighting. If she couldn't control her power and destroyed the restaurant, then it would be equivalent to losing. Therefore, she didn't make a move, as she knew that Yi Chen was about to make his move. Similarly, the sword qi shot out by Yi Chen was thinner and sharper than the white sword qi. Like a paper knife, it followed the white sword qi's outline and cut it in half. The remaining power of the sword qi didn't dissipate and continued to counterattack. Good move. Liu Wujian, who was known as the West Ocean Swordmaster, had a gleam in his eyes. He reached out and pinched Yi Chen's sword qi. The sword qi was still struggling like a slippery eel, but as Liu Wujian exerted a little force, the sword qi dissipated with a puff. As expected of the continent's sword master, you are qualified to be my opponent. However, just this bit of strength is only enough to pique my interest. We will meet again in the future. At that time, it won't be too late to fight. Liu Wujian stood up and said to the multicolor-robed woman and the majestic youth, "Let's go." Humph, count yourself lucky. The multicolor-robed woman glared at Murong Qingcheng. When the three of them walked to the staircase, one of the geniuses couldn't help but say, "Why don't we fight now? Could it be that you're afraid and think that your current strength isn't enough?" Liu Wujian said indifferently, "I will represent my master to meet Sky Sword Master. When I defeat him, there will be plenty of opportunities. At that time, you can come and watch the battle." The location will be at your so-called Nine-Dragon Lake. That place is quite interesting. Meet Sky Sword Master. The person who spoke was dumbstruck. This was a legendary sword artist of the older generation. Although he wasn't a sword master, many people believed that he had the strength of a sword master. When you see Sky Sword Master, send my regards. The battle a year ago made me very happy. Yi Chen's voice was transmitted. Send my regards. Liu Wujian's eyes narrowed. He didn't know Sky Sword Master's strength, but his master had once been defeated by him. Now, he had surpassed his master, and had long since surpassed his master. Therefore, he had come to defeat Sky Sword Master in his master's stead. From Yi Chen's tone, he had clearly fought with Sky Sword Master. As for who won and who lost, the answer was already clear. Interesting. Liu Wujian smiled and walked down the stairs. All of a sudden, a voice resounded, September 18th, Nine-Dragon Lake. Let me see what geniuses of true spirit continent are there. The 18th of September was the date of the previous Nine-Dragon Lake battles. Liu Wujian's intention was very clear. He wanted to defeat the numerous geniuses of true spirit continent in this meaningful place and spread the prestige of West Ocean Sword Sect. Wherever he went, there was no one who didn't submit. Chapter 701. Too arrogant. Does he think that he can sweep away all the geniuses of true spirit continent by himself? Many geniuses were indignant. Don't worry. Although West Ocean Sword Master is strong, our continent has many peak geniuses as well. The top 5 of the master's ranking, which one of them isn't independent? Right, Yang Fengfeng is ranked 5th, has speed unparalleled. Bai Wuxue is a veteran young tyrant, steady like a mountain. Dantai Mingyue's movement is marvelous, stunning, and nimble, while Dugu Ju's blade art is tyrannical and invincible. Apart from these 4, our continent also has Sword Master Yi Chen. After a year, I wonder what level Yi Chen has reached. He's definitely stronger than before. As for how much stronger, it's hard to say. Let's wait and see. On the 18th of September, we'll know. The crowd discussed spiritedly, their emotions stirring. Yi Chen, my intuition tells me that this West Ocean Sword Master is truly extraordinary. You can't be careless when the time comes. Hai Wuya warned Yi Chen. Yi Chen said, don't worry, I won't look down on anyone, nor will I overestimate anyone. In a battle, we'll know who's stronger. Hehe, my warning is unnecessary. You're much calmer than me. Hai Wuya smiled. White Cloud Restaurant was only the first location of the gathering. After drinking, the group of 20 people left Lotus City and flew northwest. This gathering was not just for drinking. How long could one drink last? Usually, this kind of gathering would be held for half a month or even a month. Everybody would get together to get acquainted and talk about their recent situation. After a long time, their feelings would fade, and they would eventually become ordinary friends, or even strangers. One had to know how long the path of martial arts was. It would be too sad to not have friends who could support each other. The path of martial arts was not about destroying one's feelings, but about keeping them inside. Friends who were worth making were true friends, and friends who were not worth making would be forgotten. There were many places of interest in the Tianwu domain. Along the way, Yi Chen saw many youths traveling in groups. When they were in the mood, they would find an empty space to drink and chat. Then, they would exchange moves with each other. They were not aiming for victory, just to test their martial arts and experience. This is the Meteorite Mountain Range. 10,000 years ago, a group of meteorites smashed into this place and formed it. Because all the vitality in this place was scattered by the shockwave, the underground rivers were also filled up, causing this place to be barren and devoid of demonic beasts. However, deep underground, a type of hard meteorite crystal can often be found. This crystal is a top-notch material for forging treasures. Yang Fengfeng pointed at a desolate mountain range and explained. Yi Chen and Murong Qingcheng looked over. Murong Qingcheng didn't feel anything, but Yi Chen inwardly clicked his tongue. There were countless craters in this meteorite mountain range. The smallest one was dozens of li in diameter, and the biggest one was thousands of li in diameter. It was like an astonishingly huge iron pot buried in the ground. The bottom of the crater was hundreds of li above the ground, and ordinary martial artists would not be able to climb out if they fell in. Yi Chen was shocked because he came from another world. Even the smallest meteorite here could cover the earth in dust and kill most of the living beings. Only the true spirit continent, which was countless times larger than the earth, could easily withstand the impact of meteorites. Of course, one couldn't directly estimate the size of the meteorite from the size of the crater, because the meteorite falling at high speed would have an impact. The crater was dozens of li in diameter, while the meteorite was a few li in size. That several thousand li wide crater was probably made by 100 li wide meteorite. After passing through the meteorite mountain range, everyone arrived at a huge canyon. This canyon was called Emperor Canyon. It was 99,000 li long, and its widest part reached 1,000 li. It divided the surrounding 100,000 li into two parts. It was a ghastly crack. Flying in the sky and looking down, it was easy to be scared silly. After all, anyone who saw such a crack would suspect whether it was connected to hell or not. They would be afraid that they would be sucked in and never see the light of day again. The reason why the Emperor Canyon was named Emperor was because there was an Emperor scar stele in the depths of the Emperor Canyon. It was said that only titled monarchs could leave their mark on the Emperor scar stele. Peak monarchs couldn't even leave a single mark. No one has been able to leave a mark on the stele for several tens of thousands of years. Yang Feng said. Yi Chen doubtfully said, Shu King is a titled monarch, but even he couldn't leave a mark. Hai Wuya said, the ancient era's standard is different from the present. With Shu King's strength, he could only be considered a peak monarch, not a titled monarch. So that's how it is. Yi Chen faintly nodded. Let's go and take a look. Yang Fengfeng's speed gradually increased as she rushed toward the depths of Emperor Canyon. The others followed closely behind. Roughly an hour later, everyone arrived at the center of Emperor Canyon. Let's go down. Without the slightest hesitation, Yang Fengfeng's figure shot into the canyon. Yi Chen, Murong Qingcheng, and Hai Wuya also didn't hesitate. The others exchanged glances and pondered for a moment before clenching their teeth and chasing after them. It was as if there was something in the depths of the canyon that made them afraid. The middle part of the Monarch Canyon was the widest. It had a circumference of over 1,000 li. There was no sign of life in this area, nor were there any miscellaneous items. There was only a stone tablet at the center. The stone tablet was 99 li tall and 9 li wide. There were many marks on it. There were saber marks, sword marks, palm marks, fist marks, finger marks, and even claw marks. They were arranged in order from top to bottom. There were no marks left on the stone tablet from the middle to the bottom. It was a piece of blank space. 100 li away, everyone stopped and slowly descended. It wasn't that they didn't want to approach, but that they couldn't. Emperor Scar stele wasn't an ordinary stele. The aura it emitted made their Jin Yuan, blood, and even heartbeats go berserk. They could be killed by this aura at any moment. Yang Fengfeng said solemnly, Emperor Scar stele itself is a miraculous item. The people who left their marks on it were all titled monarchs. Although no one has been able to leave a mark on the stele in the past several tens of thousands of years, the remnant aura is still not something ordinary people can endure. We usually call this aura Emperor Qi, the aura of titled monarchs. Emperor Qi, Yi Chen muttered. Yang Fengfeng turned her head and said to the disciples of Mysterious Sect and Sky Ocean Sect, you guys stay here. Don't get too close. After saying these words, she turned to Yi Chen and the rest, we can walk forward a bit and see a bit more clearly. The marks on the stele are uncanny workmanship. Even the shallowest mark represents an astonishing accomplishment, containing the laws of heaven and earth. Ordinary Sea of Soul Realm experts naturally couldn't enter within 100 li. However, Yang Fengfeng, Hai Wuya, Yi Chen, and Murong Qingcheng were all masters. They could approach a bit closer without any problems. Moreover, beyond 100 li, they truly couldn't see too clearly. The Emperor Qi restricted one's perception and eyesight, concealing the truth. All right. Yi Chen was extremely interested in Emperor Scar stele. He could feel countless strands of frightening will on it. There were sword intent, blade intent, fist intent, and so on. Each strand made him feel extremely shocked. Compared to the will on the steely, Yi Chen's destruction sword intent wasn't even worth mentioning. It was like comparing a firefly to the bright moon. 90 li. 80 li. At 75 li, Hai Wuya bitterly smiled. He couldn't hold on any longer. Yang Fengfeng and the other two continued forward. 70 li. 60 li. Murong Qingcheng stopped, and Yang Fengfeng's complexion was also somewhat pale. Let's do it here. Yi Chen's expression was calm. The Emperor Qi 60 li away was equivalent to a peak 5th step sword intent. Although it was fierce, Yi Chen had a 5th step destruction sword intent, which was equivalent to an ordinary 6th step sword intent. Therefore, he wasn't affected much. However, he still had to take care of Murong Qingcheng and Yang Fengfeng. Yang Fengfeng glanced at Yi Chen in admiration and said, "The Emperor Qi emitted by the steely contains different wills. Be careful of the most offensive sword intent and blade intent." I know. Yi Chen had just suffered a strand of Emperor Qi containing sword intent. It was unknown how many years this strand of sword intent had existed for, but it was still incomparably sharp. Raising his eyes, Yi Chen saw the first mark at the top. It was a fist imprint, square-shaped, as if a jade seal had been stamped on it. The fist imprint was extremely deep. However, due to the passage of time, the Emperor Qi emitted from it was somewhat weak. However, compared to the marks below, the Emperor Qi emitted from this fist imprint was the most boundless, as if an emperor was overlooking the heaven and earth. Yang Fengfeng introduced, the first fist imprint was left behind by the first titled monarch of the ancient era. This monarch was called Ancient Emperor. According to historical records, this fist imprint should have been created by ancient emperor's four-way emperor fist, which is one of the most famous peak profound martial skills. Shifting their gazes downward, the three saw the second mark. This was a claw mark. An ordinary claw mark naturally wouldn't enter the three's eyes. However, this claw mark made the three's hair stand on end. It was as if this claw had not clawed at the steely, but a piece of land, a mountain, a river, a planet. Anything under this claw would shatter. Moreover, this claw mark was actually emitting a demonic will, instilling great fear in people's hearts. This is the second titled monarch after Ancient Emperor, Heaven-abandoning Emperor. Heaven-abandoning Emperor walked the demonic Tao, and was also one of the three great demonic Tao kings in human history. At his peak, he left this world for the starry sky and disappeared without a trace. Since then, he has never been seen again. Hearing Yang Fengfeng's words, coupled with her own demonic will, an illusion appeared before Murong Qingcheng's eyes. It was as if she was seeing a figure on the Emperor Scar Steely. This figure was boundlessly tall, reaching the starry sky and stepping on the earth. Its shadow enveloped the world, and with a wave of its palm, mountains and rivers were destroyed and planets exploded. What a powerful figure! Shaking her head, Murong Qingcheng sobered up. She knew that this was not as simple as an illusion. Through Yang Fengfeng's narration, she had a preliminary impression of this figure. Then, heaven-abandoning Emperor's Qi surged over and combined with the impression in her mind, giving rise to a mysterious reaction. The eighth sword mark is an anomaly. He doesn't have the strength of a titled monarch, but he has the means to leave a mark on the steely. His title is Sword King. Yang Fengfeng glanced at Yi Chen. He is the Sword King, Yi Chen muttered. Under the heavens, in human history, there had only been one Sword King, and that was the ancient Sword King. The reason why Battle King didn't dare to call himself Sword King was because he believed that he hadn't reached the level of the ancient Sword King. Unexpectedly, this Sword King was even more powerful than he had imagined. He was unexpectedly able to leave a sword mark on the steely with the identity of a king. Although this sword mark was very shallow, the aura it emitted was not weak at all. Chapter 702. Sword King's comprehension of profound sword arts is insufficient, but his sword will is not the slightest bit inferior to titled monarchs, even slightly surpassing them. I think this should be the key to his fame being passed down through the ages and leaving sword scars on Emperor Scar Steely. Although there weren't many records regarding Sword King, there was still some. Therefore, Yang Fengfeng knew quite a bit. Yi Chen faintly nodded. The sword scars are shallow, which means that the attack power is not high enough. If the aura is not weak, it means that the sword intent is strong. Sword intent could amplify one's attack power, but there was a limit. Sword King's sword moves containing sword intent were clearly weaker than titled monarchs. However, his sword intent was at the forefront. Continuing down, shocking scars imprinted themselves in the eyes of the three. Some of these scars were strange and bizarre, such as forks, triangles, prisms, big and small dots, intersecting scars, and yin and yang fish scars. It was unknown what profound martial skills these titled monarchs used. The 398th mark was 70,000 years ago. The most famous titled monarch was called Four Extreme Emperor. He was proficient in space profound, and was famous for his finger arts. At the Sea of Soul Realm, he created a low-grade profound martial skill, Void-Shattering Finger. Its might far surpasses mid-grade profound martial skills. The Void-Shattering Finger has a total of 4 styles, each representing an application of the space profound. The fourth finger's might is the greatest, almost comparable to high-grade profound martial skills. As she spoke, Yang Fengfeng glanced at Yi Chen with an odd expression. She had seen Yi Chen use a space profound finger art before. Of course, there were many people who knew space profound throughout the ages. However, for Extreme Emperor was relatively close to the modern era, so his void-shattering finger had some descriptions. The finger art Yi Chen used was very similar to the third style of Four Extreme Emperor's void-shattering finger, only the Zhen Yuan color was different. Apart from this, Xia Hozuan's void-shattering finger should also be the second style of Four Extreme Emperor's void-shattering finger. Void-shattering finger. Yi Chen's expression flickered. He had found the third style of the void-shattering finger in the Goat Head Mountain in the South Rudra region's 100,000 mountain range. At the same time, he had also found a white key with the words Emperor's Tomb, Aries constellation written on it. Could it be that the Emperor's Tomb was the tomb of the Four Extreme Emperor, and the white key was the key to open it? Four Extreme Emperor has 4 subordinates, all of whom are life and death kings and also demonic beasts. They are Azure Wolf King, White Sheep King, Fire Bird King, and Sky Scorpio King. Azure Wolf King represents Wolf constellation, White Sheep King represents Aries constellation, and Firebird King and Sky Scorpio King represent Firebird constellation and Scorpio King respectively. Four Extreme Emperor imparted each of them a void-shattering finger, allowing them to comprehend the space profound. Aries King, Aries constellation? Yi Chen understood everything. The void-shattering finger that he cultivated was indeed created by the Four Extreme Sovereign, and the Four Extreme Sovereign had taught the third style of the void-shattering finger to the Aries King. That was why the white key had the words Aries constellation. Yang Fengfeng continued, for Extreme Emperor was the same as the heaven-abandoning Emperor. He also entered the starry sky, disappearing for 100 years before returning. However, when he returned, he had suffered an incurable injury, as if he had encountered something frightening in the starry sky. Sensing that his life was at its end, the Four Extreme Emperor built his own tomb in a forbidden region. This tomb contained countless arrays and the heaven-shaking power that the Four Extreme Emperor had unleashed before his death. Even life and death kings would have a slim chance of survival if they tried to force their way in. Later on, his 4 subordinates also died one after another. They were subordinates of the Four Extreme Emperor, and after death, they wished to accompany him. They built 4 tombs in the surroundings of the Four Extreme Emperor's tomb. Opening these 4 tombs required a special key. Since these 4 tombs were connected to the Four Extreme Emperor's tomb, life and death kings would have a hard time barging in. After so many years, has anyone found the location of the Four Extreme Emperor's tomb? Yi Chen suddenly asked. The Four Extreme Emperor's tomb was undoubtedly the tomb of the Four Extreme Emperor. Yang Fengfeng shook her head. I'm not sure. The tomb of the Four Extreme Emperor was built in a moving forbidden region. Even life and death kings would have a hard time finding it. And even if they found it, without the key, they might not be able to open the tomb. The location of the tomb has always been a hot topic, but I've never heard of anyone finding it or entering it. Even if they did, they probably wouldn't spread the news. That's true. Yi Chen faintly nodded. His soul power entered his storage ring. On a bookshelf in the corner, a huge white key was quietly placed there. The 4 Extreme Emperor was an extremely famous titled monarch. Even life and death kings covet his space profound martial skill. I'm afraid that once it appears, it will cause a reign of terror. Even Shu King and my master will have to make a move. Yang Fengfeng continued. That's for sure. At the Sea of Soul realm, the comprehension of profounds depended on the quality, not the quantity. It was impossible to comprehend too many profounds at the same time. Having a few was already good enough. However, at the life and death realm, one could enter the state of being one with the heavens at any time, and their comprehension ability would increase by countless folds. Comprehending profounds would be extremely fast. As a result, the demand for profounds would increase by a lot. After all, different profounds would have different effects and might. Apart from the main profounds, how could a few profounds be enough? Space profound was one of the strongest profounds, and was related to many profounds. As long as one could obtain a space profound martial skill, it would be of great help. Of course, the grade of void-shattering finger was a bit low, and life and death kings might not be too enthusiastic about it. It would be best if one had it, but it wouldn't matter if one didn't. What life and death kings truly cared about were mid-grade space profound martial skills, or even high-grade ones. After all, void-shattering finger was only a low-grade profound martial skill, but its might already surpassed mid-grade profound martial skills. In that case, high-grade space profound martial skills would at least be equivalent to peak-grade profound martial skills. My current strength is still far from enough. For Extreme Emperor's space profound martial skill has already become a legend. I can only look up to it from afar. Above mid-grade profound sense martial skills were high-grade profound sense martial skills, peak-grade profound sense martial skills, and above that would be the heavenly Tao law. Above Sea of Soul realm were half-step kings, ordinary life and death kings, peak kings, and titled monarchs. Each rank was like a huge chasm. Without the will and determination to break through everything, one would not be able to cross it. For Extreme Emperor already stood at the peak of this world, while Yi Chen was at most a youngster who had just grown up. The gap between the two was too great. Gazing at the finger hole left behind by 4 Extreme Emperor, Yi Chen felt as if he was looking at a giant looking down at him with cold eyes. After 4 Extreme Emperor, only 13 titled monarchs remained. It could be seen that as the modern era got closer and closer, the gap between the monarchs who left their marks was getting longer and longer. From the ancient era to the early medieval era, there would be one every 1,000 years. From the medieval era to the early near ancient era, there would be one every 1,500 years. From the near ancient era, there would be one every several thousand years. For some unknown reason, the number of titled monarchs kept decreasing. In the modern era, there weren't even any true titled monarchs, because only those who left their marks on the Emperor Scar Stele could be considered as true titled monarchs. The last titled monarch was a world-shaking genius. Before him, there hadn't been a titled monarch who could leave his mark on the stele for 10,000 years. Until he appeared, his title was Yuan Emperor. Yuan Emperor had an innate body and boundless Zhen Yuan. While Yang Fengfeng was explaining Yuan Emperor, in a valley far away, a great battle was taking place. The two sides were none other than Master Sky Sword and West Ocean Sword Master, Liu Wujian. Master Sky Sword, seems like my master overestimated your strength. There's no need for me to make a move. He can defeat you. While fighting Master Sky Sword, Liu Wujian still had the strength to speak. Page, it's only the beginning. Master Sky Sword's voice was somewhat hurried. Sky Sword style, White Flood Dragon. As he spoke, Master Sky Sword's longsword slashed, and a white silk-like sword chi tore through the air. The sword chi stretched and stretched, bending and straightening like a nimble white flood dragon, piercing through the void. It was as fast as a flickering light, unable to be captured by the naked eye. Wave Cleaver. Facing this sword, Liu Wujian's figure flickered a few times. His entire being seemed to shift through the void as he chopped off the white flood dragon sword Qi's head. Sure enough, it's his style. Master Sky Sword's brows furrowed. In truth, when he defeated Liu Wujian's master, it was only a narrow victory. The latter's clean and efficient style had left a deep impression on him. Liu Wujian's style was very similar to his master's. Of course, it didn't mean that Liu Wujian was walking the same path as his master. It could only be said that the styles of the West Ocean were more or less the same. Different living environments naturally led to different philosophies. Sky Sword style, Sky Cleaver. Seeing that his first strike had no effect, Master Sky Sword attacked once again. This sword strike was very similar to Liu Wujian's Wave Cleaver, clean and efficient. Haha. Is this the move that you created based on my master? Unfortunately, even my master isn't my opponent. How could you be? Liu Wujian soared into the sky and fiercely stabbed out with his long sword. Rings of qi revolved around the long sword, instantly piercing through Master Sky Sword's sword qi. So fast. Master Sky Sword was gobsmacked. His Sky Sword style Sky Cleaving was a speed-type sword that didn't have the slightest variation. All it had was an indomitable will that burst forth with astonishing potential. However, Liu Wujian's sword speed was even faster than his, as if this kind of sword speed was nothing special to him. Sky Sword style, Sword Array. Finally, Master Sky Sword took out his strongest move. 18 true yuan long swords flew out of his body. With a shake of the long sword in his hand, the 18 long swords revolved around the long sword in his hand, rapidly forming a sword array. As soon as the sword array was formed, its aura immediately soared. Astonishing sword qi pierced through the sky, raising the valley to the ground. The grass and trees were also startled, uprooting from the ground like small swords. Go! Slashing the long sword in his hand, Master Sky Sword roared. Immediately, the sword array flew toward Liu Wujian. Sword array, interesting. However, this is far from enough. Master Sky Sword, take my self-created move, Shifting Ocean Sword Qi. Liu Wujian held the long sword with both hands, slashing it from bottom to top. As if moving an ocean, a majestic force erupted, condensing into a deep white sword qi that engulfed the heaven and earth, clashing with the incoming sword array. Crackle! How could the sword formation block this mighty sword qi? In an instant, it was shattered and sent flying back. Danger! Master Sky Sword's face changed color as he held his long sword horizontally in front of him. The next moment, the deep white sword qi swept over. Puff! Spurting out a large mouthful of blood, Master Sky Sword was sent flying like an arrow piercing through the sky. Chapter 703. There were not many people watching this battle, but they were all famous figures, such as Shu Yuan of the Earth Sword Sect, Master Yuan Sword Sect, who was on good terms with the Sky Sword Sect, and the eldest disciple of the Sky Sword Sect, Master Wind Lightning Sword Sect. Although these people were not as famous as the Sky Sword Sect, they were still in the top 10 or 20 among the Sword Dao Grandmasters. Master has been injured. Wind Thunder Sword Master was more than 70 years old, but still seemed to be in the prime of his life. His mouth was wide open, his face full of disbelief. He knew that Yi Chen had defeated his master, Master Sky Sword. According to his master, Yi Chen had only won by relying on the defensive sword art. Without the defensive sword art, the two were equally matched. However, this West Ocean Sword Master seemed to have defeated his master easily. The difference was too great. Dozens of li away, Master Sky Sword stopped retreating, blood flowing out from the corner of his mouth like a snake. What a great move, Ocean Shifting Sword Qi. This is the most majestic and powerful sword move I've ever seen. You've indeed surpassed your master, far surpassing your master. Master Sky Sword's expression was solemn. He had never been suppressed like this in a battle between sword masters. Even Yi Chen was only slightly better than him with the defensive sword art. If they were to fight to the death, even if he was killed, Yi Chen wouldn't feel good. Chem. I still have the power to fight. Liu Wujian was slightly surprised. This sword contained the profoundness of wind and water. The water profoundness was already at minor completion, and the wind profoundness was close to minor completion. When combined, it was far beyond mid-grade profound martial arts. Adding the ingenious use of power, no profound martial arts of the same level could block it. Unfortunately, I have developed a new sky sword style in the past year. Now, I will use you to test it, Master Sky Sword said lightly. Haha. Hearing this, Liu Wujian laughed. Using me to test your moves? I'm afraid I won't be impressed by your sword moves. But I will give you a chance. Go all out. Liu Wujian quietly waited for Master Sky Sword's strongest move. Master Sky Sword didn't get angry. He raised his arm and placed the long sword in front of his chest, as if performing the most pious sword salute. Sword of Understanding. With a slash of the long sword, the Heavenly Sword sect unleashed the latest Heavenly Sword style. No one could describe how fast this sword was. This sword seemed to have caused time to stop, and thoughts to stagnate. Liu Wujian, who bore the brunt of this attack, could feel the terror of this sword the most. If Sect Master Sky Sword's previous attack had only piqued his interest, then this Sword of Understanding had already brought him some threat. Ultimate kill, 1,000 miles thread. The Heaven Sword sect had the Sword of Understanding, but Liu Wujian also had his own trump card. Before this, he hadn't been serious at all. He grasped the sharp long sword in his hand and swung it in the air. A moment later, a white ray of light shot out. At a glance, it was like the line between the sea and the sky, vast, profound, and unreachable. Puff. Master Sky Sword's Sword of Understanding was extremely powerful. His sword chi condensed into a straight line, while Liu Wujian's 1,000 miles thread was similar, condensing into a straight line. However, when the two attacks collided, the one that collapsed was Master Sky Sword's Sword of Understanding. That was because Liu Wujian's attack contained too much power, and there was no end to it at all. No matter how powerful the Sword of Understanding was, how could it block it? What a profound water profound. Master Sky Sword's eyes narrowed. How could he not see that Liu Wujian also contained the two profound essences of wind and water? But it was different from the sea-shifting sword chi. This 1,000 miles thread used the water profound as the main element, displaying the water profound to the fullest. When facing this move, it was like being in the sea. Although one could see the line between the sea and the sky, no matter how fast one would never be able to reach it. Creak. The 1,000 miles thread shattered the Sword of Understanding and slashed at Master Sky Sword's chest at a speed that he couldn't dodge in time. In the next moment, a loud metallic sound resounded. Master Sky Sword's hair was disheveled as he flew back while spurting blood. Unlike the previous time, his injuries were extremely severe. His 5 viscera and 6 bowels were almost displaced, and his blood was flowing in reverse. To be able to force me to use 1,000 miles thread, you should be proud of yourself. Unfortunately, your potential has been exhausted. In the future, the gap between us will only grow bigger and bigger. Sheathing his long sword, Liu Wujian said to the majestic young man and the multicolor-robed woman, "Let's go." Swish, swish, swish. The three disappeared from everyone's sight like flickering lights. "Master, are you all right?" Master Tempest Sword immediately rushed over to support Master Sky Sword. Master Sky Sword's face was ashen as he waved his hand. "I won't die." Master Earth Sword sucked in a deep breath and asked, "Master Sky Sword, in your opinion, what is the extent of this Liu Wujian's strength?" "Him. I reckon he can sweep through all Sea of Soul Masters on True Spirit Continent." Master Sky Sword pondered for a while before speaking. "What? How is that possible?" Master Earth Sword and Master Yuan Sword were astonished. "Isn't there still Yi Chen?" Shu Yuan blurted out. Master Sky Sword smiled bitterly. "In the past year, I've created the Sword of Understanding, and my strength has improved by a lot. A year ago, Yi Chen's strength was higher than mine. If he had continued to make rapid progress, he would at most be on par with the current Liu Wujian. However, I can feel that Liu Wujian's true strength is far from this. He hasn't used all his trump cards yet." Master Sky Sword originally believed that Liu Wujian's strength was only at this level. However, as soon as 1,000 miles thread appeared, he immediately sensed that Liu Wujian had an even stronger trump card. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so arrogant. If Yi Chen wanted to defeat him, it would be extremely difficult. This, Shu Yuan and Master Yuan's sword exchanged a glance. Sigh, I hope my guess is wrong. Master Sky Sword shook his head once more and left under the support of Master Wind Lightning. This matter is getting out of hand. Shu Yuan's face was filled with worry. As a master of True Spirit Continent, he didn't want to see all the Master Sea of Soul Realm experts of the continent being swept by a youngster of West Ocean. Perhaps there will be a turn for the better, Master Yuan's sword said in a low voice. In the depths of North Ocean was a group of floating islands. At the center of the group was an inverted cone-shaped floating island. This island was boundless, with mountains, basins, forests, volcanoes, rivers, plains, and valleys. At the edge of the floating island, large and small waterfalls cascaded down, pouring down on the floating island below. At the same time, waterfalls also cascaded down from the floating island, flowing down to the floating island below. From afar, this group of floating islands was like a paradise, a wonder of the immortal world. It was truly beautiful, magnificent, and exquisite at the same time. On the inverted cone-shaped floating island, there was a huge palace that occupied several thousand hectares. Inside the palace, a middle-aged man and a youngster were standing one after another. In front of them was a model of a continent. Based on its shape and geographical distribution, one could tell at a glance that it was a model of True Spirit Continent. Above the model were numerous sparkling and translucent lines intertwining, covering the entire sky above the model. At a glance, it was simply impossible to count. There were at least millions of them intertwining together. The middle-aged man waved his finger, and a light dot landed on the thin line at the center of the continent. That was the central region, Sky Marshal Region. Tian go to Sky Marshal Region. The youngster said respectfully, Master, why do you want me to go to Sky Marshal Region? If my guess is correct, the Forbidden Region carrying for Extreme Emperor's Graveyard will move to Sky Marshal Region within a year. You possess the first style of Void-Shattering Finger and Sky Scorpio King's Key, which means that this graveyard is fated with you. However, fate is fleeting, and you have to fight for it yourself. For Extreme Emperor's Graveyard will move to Sky Marshal Region. The youngster sucked in a deep breath and bowed respectfully. Yes, Master. Remember, Void-Shattering Finger has 4 styles, and there are also 4 keys to open the graveyard. The other 3 keys should be in the hands of others. If you can snatch them, do it. If you can't, then cooperate with them. I have a premonition that with the 4 Void-Shattering Finger styles and the 4 keys, you should be able to enter 4 Extreme Emperor's Graveyard. Rest assured, Master. With my strength, unless it's a half-step king or a life and death king, nobody can be my opponent. A cold light flickered in the youngster's eyes. Your master knows your strength the best. However, Sky Marshal Region is a holy land for geniuses. Perhaps there aren't many who can contend against you, but there are certainly some who you can't kill. I can't kill them? The youngster declined to comment. All right, you can go now. The middle-aged man waved his hand. Farewell, Master. The youngster turned around and left the palace, soaring into the sky and flying in the direction of True Spirit Continent, soon disappearing without a trace. Waiting for the youngster to leave, the middle-aged man clasped his hands behind his back, for Extreme Emperor's Graveyard has appeared. It's time for me to take a look. I wonder what level the strength of those fellows from True Spirit Continent has reached. I hope they won't disappoint me. Dragon King should come out of seclusion soon. With a wave of his hand, the model of True Spirit Continent disappeared into the void, and the middle-aged man's figure flickered, disappearing from the palace. Emperor Canyon, Yi Chen and the rest had long since left. On Emperor Scar Steely, the traces left behind by 4 Extreme Emperor flickered faintly like an illusion. In the following month, Yi Chen and the group traveled to a lot of places. There were natural wonders and strange terrains caused by ancient king-level battles. There were countless of them. A month passed, and everyone went their separate ways. Yi Chen and Murong Qingcheng didn't return to South Rudra region. It was already August, only a month away from 18th of September. If they went back, they wouldn't have enough time. Therefore, they might as well stay in Sky Marshal region. During this period of time, the news of West Ocean Sword Master Liu Wujian defeating Master Sky Sword spread like wildfire. Soon after, the incident at White Cloud Restaurant spread as well. Combining the two matters, it immediately created a sensation. Many people knew that a sword master named Liu Wujian had come to West Ocean. Apart from defeating Master Sky Sword in his master's stead, he was also going to meet the geniuses of True Spirit Continent on 18th of September. West Ocean Sword Master, Continent's Sword Master, this was just a gimmick. Adding Liu Wujian's arrogant words, Nine Dragon Lake once again welcomed a golden age after 2 years. At that time, the number of people heading to Nine Dragon Lake would probably surpass that of the past, because this time was different from the last. This time represented the dignity of True Spirit Continent. If all of them were defeated by Liu Wujian, it would be tantamount to admitting that True Spirit Continent was inferior to West Ocean. Chapter 704. As the days passed, the 18th of September got closer and closer. As time went on, a large number of Sea of Soul Realm experts arrived from the nearby towns. Even Sea of Soul Realm masters could be seen frequently, which was something unimaginable in the past. Inside the restaurants and tea houses, all sorts of discussions could be heard. West Ocean Sword Master Liu Wujian has come with great momentum. Even Master Sky Sword lost to him. Right now, I'm a bit worried that he might really sweep through all the geniuses in the Sky Marshal region. That shouldn't be possible, right? Regardless, our True Spirit Continent is the place with the most geniuses. It's not something the four oceans can compare to. You can't say that. Who says a remote place can't give birth to an invincible genius? Moreover, West Ocean has always been the most powerful among the four oceans. Only North Ocean can compete with him. Sigh. It seems like this era is even more frightening than we imagined. Although West Ocean and North Ocean had many geniuses in the past, it was impossible for a supergenius like Liu Wujian to appear. Do you think the number of life and death kings in the next 100 years will be much higher than before? It's quite possible. In the past 100 years, there would be around 10 life and death kings, and not more than 20. This time, I'm afraid it will be no less than 30, perhaps even more. In the ancient era, the number of life and death kings was the highest. Although they were not everywhere, it was still a spectacular sight. In the medieval era, the number of life and death kings suddenly decreased by 1-fold. In the recent ancient era, it had decreased by 2 folds. In the modern era, it had decreased by several folds. If more than 30 life and death kings could be born in 100 years, it would be the level of the late ancient era. Dugu family, Dugu Ju walked out of the evil demon cave with a calm expression. He did not look as miserable and frightening as before, as if the evil demon cave no longer had any effect on him. Walking to a huge wooden board not far away, Dugu Ju stretched out his hand and took down the white paper nailed to it. It turned out that Dugu Ju often went into seclusion. Fearing that he didn't know much about the outside world, he had ordered people to write down some of the important matters of the Sky Marshal region and even the whole continent on the paper. This way, even if he didn't leave Dugu Ju, he would still know everything about the world. West Ocean Sword Master Liu Wujian. When Dugu Ju read about Liu Wujian, his eyes gradually narrowed. Interesting. You actually defeated Master Sky Sword and even met with Yi Chen. Since you're able to stand on equal footing with Yi Chen, you're definitely not weak. Fine, let me see how many tricks you have up your sleeves and whether you're qualified to be a formidable opponent of my Dugu Ju. The paper was crumpled into a ball and turned into ashes. The evil demon cave does not have any effect on me anymore, unless I can open the seal and enter the next level. But, with the weakening of the seal, that evil demon would definitely take the chance to attack the seal and escape. So, it would not be a good idea. No rush, I will think about it after I reach Late Sea of Soul's realm. Just like Yi Chen, Dugu Ju was also stuck at the peak of Mid-Sea of Soul realm. Entering Late Sea of Soul realm was inevitable, but it would take some time. Taking a step forward, Dugu Ju walked out of the demonic cave. Unknowingly, it was already September, and the date was fixed on September 16th. Near the Nine-Dragon Mountain, a large number of Sea of Souls realm warriors were rushing toward the Nine-Dragon Mountain in an endless stream. September 17th, those who should come had all come. In the center of the Nine-Dragon Mountain, around the Nine-Dragon Lake, there was an ocean of people, their voices reaching the sky. Shoo 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 shoo. On this day, the number of geniuses who had come was also the highest. Bai Wuxue, Yang Fengfeng, Lu Xiaoyu, Sichu Hao, Bei Minghui, Chu Zhongtian. Besides a few, all the other top geniuses whose names shook the world had arrived, wanting to see what kind of level the so-called West Ocean Swordmaster had reached. Beside Lu Xiaoyu, a lot of people had gathered, including Bai Wuxue. Brother Lu, you fought with the West Ocean Sword Master half a year ago. How is his strength? Bai Wuxue asked. Lu Xiaoyu was silent for a while, then said slowly, very powerful. Hearing him, Bai Wuxue's expression froze. Lu Xiaoyu's words were very vague for others. Very powerful, everyone knew, but they did not know exactly how powerful, which was tantamount to not answering. However, Bai Wuxue was very clear about Lu Xiaoyu's character. If the West Ocean Swordmaster was only a bit more powerful than him, he would not say the word very powerful. But, to make him say very powerful, this West Ocean Swordmaster was definitely an extremely dangerous person. But, it's not like I did not make any progress in this half a year. A cold light flashed through Lu Xiaoyu's eyes. Bai Wuxue nodded, not saying anything. My Imperial Sword technique has been cultivated to the 3rd level. Although I can only launch 3 swords at the same time, it is still twice as powerful as the 2nd level of the Imperial Sword technique. The telepathic sword that I got from Yi Chen helped me comprehend the profound meaning of speed, and the speed of my sword has been greatly improved. Liu Wujian, the West Ocean Sword Master, let me see how powerful you are. Sichu Hao stood alone on the peak with a smile on his face. He knew he was not a match for Liu Wujian, but for him, as long as he could fight with people at this level for a while, it would be something to be proud of, which meant he had the potential to catch up. Thinking for a while, Sichu Hao thought to himself, Yi Chen got my Imperial Sword technique, but I don't know which level he has cultivated it to. I guess he is at the 2nd level, but not beyond the peak of the 2nd level. At that time, I might have to compete with him in the Imperial Sword technique to see who is better. The night passed. The 18th of September arrived. Haha. The sky had just brightened when 3 figures came through the air, and the one in the lead was none other than Liu Wujian, the West Ocean Swordmaster. Liu Wujian, the West Ocean Swordmaster. Liu Wujian is here. The people near the Nine-Dragon Lake were all startled. They looked at the 3 figures, and then focused on the one in the lead. Liu Wujian's body was not strong, and he was a little thin. His palms were slender like bamboo, and they seemed to have some kind of magic power. On his face, which was not very handsome, he had a pair of narrow and sharp eyes, and a tall nose. At first glance, one would be attracted to him. Looking around, Liu Wujian did not find Yi Chen's figure, and the corner of his mouth rose. Humph, the continent's sword master? I'm afraid he is too scared to come. The woman in colorful clothes sneered. No hurry, there are a lot of people who interest me here. I can play for a long time. Liu Wujian said lightly. Indeed, there are a lot of powerful warriors. The young man's expressionless eyes gradually turned sharp. If he was a rock before, then he was a piece of steel now. The aura he was giving off was not any weaker than Liu Wujian's. Liu Wujian was the red flower, and he was the most obvious green leaf. You are Liu Wujian. The first one to stand out was Bei Minghui. All martial geniuses did not want to lose. Even though he knew that he was no match for Yi Chen, he still wanted to challenge him. You do not interest me at all. Liu Wujian glanced at Bei Minghui and then shook his head. You will know soon whether I am interested or not. Take this spear attack of mine first. Bei Minghui took out the long spear on his back and waved it out. The invisible spear light ignored most of the distance, and it was indeed Skybank. Nalan, you go meet him. Liu Wujian said to the woman in colorful clothes. All right. The woman in colorful clothes jumped up as a long red whip appeared in her hand. She lashed out at the invisible spear light. That unbelievably fast spear light seemed to have sunk into a swamp all of a sudden. Its speed was drastically reduced before it was shattered into pieces by the long whip. So powerful. This Beiming Hui is ranked in the top 20 in the Master Level Warrior ranking, but his killing attack was blocked by a girl right next to Liu Wujian. Don't worry, Beiming Hui still has a second movement. Everyone knew quite a bit about Beiming Hui's killing attack. Plus, it had been more than a year, and it would be impossible for him to not improve at all. Perhaps he had already figured out the third movement. Second movement. Indeed, Beiming Hui's expression darkened slightly when he saw that his first attack had been broken. He immediately performed his second attack. In the next second, 5 beams of silver light attacked toward the woman from different angles. Their speed was even faster than the first attack, and they were even stealthier. Bloodthirst kill. The woman in colorful clothes attacked almost at the same time as Beiming Hui, performing the same attack that she had used on Murong Qingcheng that day. It was performed with a long whip weapon, so its power was even more powerful. The woman in colorful clothes shook her long whip, and a 3-headed red snake was formed immediately. Its 3 heads clashed onto the 5 silver light beams. Pooh! 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 The snake heads were punctured, but the silver light disappeared as well. If this is all you have, then you will lose for sure. The woman in colorful clothes had suffered a loss at the hands of Murong Qingcheng, but it did not mean that she was not as powerful as Murong Qingcheng. After all, that day at the restaurant, she had been a bit careless and did not use her full power. Plus, Murong Qingcheng was already very powerful, and she was at least ranked in the top 10 of the Master Level Warrior ranking. What a joke! I have not even used my true power yet. Beiming Hui's expression was serious. At first, he had looked down on the woman in colorful clothes, thinking that Liu Wujian was just brushing him off. But now, he did not think so anymore. The woman in colorful clothes was much more powerful than he had imagined. If he did not use his full power, then he might really lose. Third movement, Skybank separation. His body split into 2 as the 2 Beiming Hui performed the Skybank movement at the same time. Although it was only one movement, the aura was completely opposite. It was as if one was in the light while the other was in the dark. The 2 auras merged together, and the Skybank movement immediately changed. The sharp spear light expanded infinitely, expanding by hundreds or even thousands of times in an instant. It shot out, and the clouds in the sky were instantly separated. This Beiming Hui has actually managed to learn the 3 movements of the Skybank. Once this movement is completed, his ranking will probably go up a couple of places. Maybe he can even get into the top 10. Everyone was secretly shocked. Chem. The woman in colorful clothes' pupils shrank. This spear attack was really out of her expectation. It actually gave her the illusion that she could not block it. Dragon slash. Under the huge pressure, the woman in colorful clothes finally used her strongest trump card. Red Jin Yuan poured into the long whip, which was like a huge chain. It coiled out and wrapped around the fierce spear light. Creak, creak. Sparks flew everywhere. The long whip and the spear light wrestled with each other, neither giving in. But in the end, the spear light was like a trapped flood dragon, and it was instantly torn apart. Lose. With no time to lose, the woman in colorful clothes swung her long whip, and the whip light turned into a scarlet python that struck Beiming Hui's protective Jin Yuan. Puff. Beiming Hui puked out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying. Beiming Hui lost. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. If it was Liu Wujian who had defeated Beiming Hui, it would not be a big deal. After all, Liu Wujian's strength was undeniable. However, this woman in colorful clothes was only a follower of Liu Wujian, and yet she also had such a frightening strength that even Beiming Hui could not block it. How could they not be shocked? You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.